shall leave you as you left me, as you left her, marooned for all eternity in the center of a dead planet. Buried alive. Buried alive.
And welcome back to Radio DMG. I am your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth. Today is August 8th, 2012, and it has been forever since we've done a Radio DMG program, and I have to apologize straightforward for that. Well, several reasons or problems got in the way, and one of those problems would be that, well, we've been really busy. Also, we released an episode and then promptly pulled it because I found out that when I rendered it, I rendered part of the interview that plays later in it at the beginning of it, and I hadn't saved the Audacity thing for it, and so I just had to scrap the whole thing. I couldn't do anything with it. But let's see. We're going to do kind of a long episode today. Sorry about that. We got a lot of stuff to get to. So what I'm going to do is I'm not really going to cover a lot of news in this. I'm going to cover, well, let's see. Last episode we released was before A-Kon. So we're missing A-Kon, Denver Comic Con, E3, and other events that happened, which I would like to discuss. Well, so just in case you're wondering, yes, I live in Aurora, Colorado. No, I wasn't at the premiere, although that's the theater that we go to all the time. So yeah, what's happened in the last couple months? We had A-Kon, and I got a lot of audio content from that. In fact, so much audio content, we'll probably split this up into 2 episodes. So this is part 1 of our con coverage, which is why I chose the Star Trek clip at the beginning. Duh. Anyways, we have, let's see, E3, Denver Comic Con, and A-Kon coverage. What's funny about E3? Actually, I can sum E3 up into one sentence. E3 2012 was disappointing. That's it. I mean, yeah, we got a new Super Mario Bros. 2 announced, which was, by the way, released in Japan recently. But the big thing from that was, well, Sony forgot they had a handheld, and they're still forgetting. I mean, one game came out. Ugh. Nintendo announced absolutely nothing. Didn't really say anything about the Wii U, and Microsoft announced stuff I don't care about either. In fact, E3 was terrible this year, and I feel sorry for the people who wasted their money to fly out there or to get hotels over there. That was just a waste of money. And I hope that more companies realize that you're wasting your money when you go to E3. E3 is only viewed by cynical AP reporters or cynical mainstream media and the people who are going to buy your stuff anyways. It's better and much more economical to control your message by just doing things like, say, what Nintendo does with the Nintendo Direct, which Nintendo had two of those in actually they had 3 or 4 of them in June and 2 in July. It was weird. They did one specifically for Dragon Quest X, but they announced during their Nintendo Direct that they had in June, they announced the 3DS XL, and they released it in Japan. It comes out on August 19th here in the United States, same day as New Super Mario Bros. 2, and it's awesome. It's going to be, 90% bigger. There's all sorts of information about it. Yes, we're late on this. No, I don't care that we're late about it, because honestly, until I talk about something, it's not worth talking about. And now that I've talked about it, 3DS XL is pretty cool. The Vita is cool, but there aren't any games for it coming out in the foreseeable future. I mean, there's some stuff I don't care about, like Sony PlayStation All-Stars, which is a Sony version of Smash Brothers with characters nobody gives a flying fahoot about. And, they did a Sony PlayStation All-Stars that does not include Spyro or Crash Bandicoot. Yeah. Or not even the car from Ridge Racer. I mean, wasn't that in a Tekken thing? Yeah. Well, anyways, that was Sony. They, uh, and then a bunch of stuff is being canceled for the PlayStation Vita and being moved over to the Nintendo Wii U, which looks like a weird bridge for handhelds and consoles. Because honestly, consoles are dead. I know that's controversial to say, but consoles are dead. PlayStation 4 or Xbox 720, 480, 420, 640, 3, whatever you want to call it, or Xbox 8, that's dead. Honestly, yeah, we can make much more powerful TVs, much more powerful consoles that will finally display 1080 progressive, because a lot of games on PlayStation 3 don't display 1080 progressive. The majority of them were 720p, with a few notable exceptions where it'd be like, oh, it's 1080 interlaced or 1080 progressive, but you have a frame drop. I mean, yeah, we'll get a refresh of those and they'll finally be up to par. I mean, the Wii U, for example, everything there apparently runs at 1080 progressive at 60 frames per second, which is actually much better than the PS3 and the Xbox 360 can currently do. It's not anywhere near a PC, but if you're playing games on a PC, you already lose. So that's just kind of the way it is. But yeah, it's the handhelds are the future, and Sony needs to embrace the future. And by embrace the future, I mean they need to support the PlayStation Vita. Seriously. I mean, this week we got Sound Shapes. Ooh, it's a rhythm game for $14.99. And that was all for the PlayStation Vita. They're not even up to date with like adding PlayStation 1 compatibility. They said, yeah, we'll get that out in summer. This is August, Sony. Anyways, enough ranting about that. Let's get down to what we're doing here. We've got several different interviews. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our musical interludes, an interview, musical interlude, interview, and we're going to do this for about maybe, we'll see how many we can cram into this one. We did cover Akon. It was pretty good this year, but kind of subdued. Next year it's in a new venue, and I honestly completely want to go next year as well, because brand new venue. When they moved out of the stupid hotel, it was so much better. Now they've gotten to a point where they need to move out of where they are currently. I mean, the stupid hotel that they had before was in an airport, and that was years ago, almost like about a decade ago. Now that they're outgrowing their new venue, we'll see. Non-Descon's coming up, and that's in September. Let's see what else. Oh, we went to Denver Comic Con, which had their first year, and honest to goodness, I think they're the same week or same days as Akon next year, and between the two of them, I'd rather go to Akon. Denver Comic Con and Literary Convention is not related in any way to San Diego Comic Con or the New York Comic Con, and they're, when you're press and you cannot find any of the staff for the convention that you are at the entirety of the convention, and then you can't schedule any guests with these. Anime Land Wasabi has a problem where you have to kind of schedule the guests with the guests, but since a lot of schedule interviews with the guests, which is kind of annoying, but at least they try. Anime Land Wasabi tries, and they're good about it. They're really good about it. Denver Comic Con didn't really try. They're like, well, can you do a call-in interview? No. Also, they had a whole bunch of guests who canceled. They advertised Will Wheaton. Will Wheaton wasn't there. He canceled a month before the convention. They advertised a bunch of people from The Walking Dead. Everybody but the kid that plays Carl canceled. Well, at least they had that guy from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And next year they're supposed to have Stan Lee, but I'm guessing, considering their track record so far, he'll cancel a couple days before the convention, but his face will be plastered over everything in the convention, and they'll tell the Denver Post about it 3 days before the convention, but they won't tell the people at the convention until they're standing in line for a panel. I felt that I'm sure they will do better next year. I'm pretty darn sure that they can't do worse. But they did get a good turnout. And aside from a deal, the whole convention was essentially a dealer's room. They had a couple booths. It was littered with bootleggers and interesting other things. There were some of my friends were there. Like we had a couple of the different animes. Like there's Rainy Day Anime, which was really the only place there that was representing anime. Then I think there was Yes Anime, which is actually a wholesaler, but they masquerade themselves into different conventions. But that's the truth. They're a wholesaler, but they go to conventions and act like they're not a wholesaler. And in a way, I don't really feel that's right. But that's just me. They did have some pretty cool booths there, some pretty cool artists there, and they had some pretty interesting people. And they had at least Billy West was there, and that's cool. And we do have some audio and such. Problem is, oi, some of these voice actors had what you would call handlers, and many of these handlers, they don't understand how conventions work. Handlers are like, well, can you get this up the same day? It's kind of like, well, there were some podcasts there. There was one that was recording at the area, and we did record an interview with Greg Weisman at Denver Comic Convention, and it was fine. Sorry to rant a little bit about it. I just felt that there were some problems with it. I mean, E3 was kind of disappointing. Denver Comic Convention was okay. Pretty good cosplayers. Pretty good stuff. Lots of interesting street passes. Not too bad. And A-Kon was as expected, actually. I felt that A-Kon this year, even though they didn't have the Hentai Fest or whatnot, and apparently there was a problem they had with some guests the previous year, and you don't take off your guests. You don't. You do not do that. But apparently there were some problems with that, and it felt a little bit more subdued this year. But that happens. I'm sure next year when they're in their new venue, it's going to be pretty great. And the cool thing is this new venue does not appear to have hanging chandeliers of death. But yeah, we got some interviews, lots of interesting people there. We got some of our regulars back in, like Kyle LeBear, Jeremy Lee. We got some more stuff with Vic, Mignanya, a couple other people in there. So we have a lot of interviews that we need to put in here. We don't have a lot of real news to really talk about. I mean, yeah, by the way, they started doing sales on the Nintendo eShop, and that's pretty good. That's a good trend, and I hope that continues in the future. Also, things like Wario Land and Mole Mania came out, and those are brilliant games, mostly. Well, Mole Mania. Wario Land is kind of a slow, staggered platformer, which, okay, it's really easy. I forgot. It's even easier than Super Mario Land 2. I'm glad that they went a completely different direction with Wario Land 2, because like Wario Land is more of a traditional thing. In Wario Land 2, you can't technically die, so they added all these extra features, or rather extra little traps and things, to make it more of a platforming challenge, because Wario Land is really easy, and it's also really sluggish. But hey, they got all the slowdown correct. Anyways, that's kind of... I guess I should probably talk about what happened to at the Aurora Theater. If you've listened to many of our other shows, you'll know that we like to go to midnight showing events, right? Midnight premieres. We love midnight premieres. We saw the Avengers when it came out at midnight. Sorry, not at midnight. Actually, the day after. We missed the midnight premiere for that one. We didn't miss the midnight premiere for Brave, and that was pretty cool. But let's see. We went to the midnight premiere for the Hunger Games, and they had trouble with their projector. We went to the midnight premiere for Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, and the power went out. This is that theater. Century 16 has the worst luck. I mean, the mall across from it, someone got shot at that a couple months back, and that was not good. But that theater, gah, they're one of the cheapest theaters. I mean, you can go see a movie as a matinee for $4.50. It's wonderful. The popcorn's good. We even have little popcorn things for that, and the drink fountain's fine. The staff is friendly. These people are very nice. It's a very, very nice theater. I mean, kind of. It's cheap, but it's good. And I like going there because there's a sense of camaraderie, of family when you go to the midnight showings, especially if you go to a Twilight one. I mean, Twilight's not the best in terms of plot or whatnot. It's kind of a terrible movie. But it's kind of a terrible movie in the way that Rocky Horror Picture Show is a terrible movie. You need to go on an opening night because the people there are friendly. The people there are hilarious. The crowd reacts to stuff on the screen. You get oohs and ahs or oh man, you get people like, for example, in the Avengers, there's a sequence in there, like many of the sequences with the Hulk, where people just flat out clap. I mean, you want to see something awesome, go to a midnight premiere for a movie. Unfortunately, we missed the midnight premiere for Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man. We did end up seeing it. It was pretty good. But well, I own a store and I'm working at it, and on the Thursday before Batman came out, like the day that we would be going to a midnight premiere, we didn't close the store till past 9:30. And that was because we had customers. I'm not going to close my store while customers are still in it. I'm not going to force anyone out the door. I don't believe in that. Because people who stay, sometimes, most of the time, they pay. They will eventually buy things. If people need a little bit of extra time to browse, I believe they should have it. Anywho, uh, we didn't get out until 9:30. Did all my closing stuff. We were putting some stuff away, cleaning up some stuff, restocking. Didn't get out of the store till almost 11:30. Tired as can be. I was just like, you know what? I want to go see The Dark Knight Rises, but I'm too tired. So I go to sleep. I have an alarm that, well, the alarm is set for in the morning, for the morning to open up with like the radio. And I was woken up by the radio talking about a shooting over at the Aurora Theater. It was just one of those moments where you're like, wait, what? Because originally they said like 20 people were dead or so. Then it was like 14, etc. It turned out to be 12. But they're like, I think they said at first like 100 people injured or something. It was like 100 people injured, 20 dead at a shooting at the Aurora Century 16 Theater. And I'm just waking up to this, and it's one of those things where you wake up and you just kind of have to bite your finger or bite your tongue or your lip just to make sure you're not still asleep and having a freaking terrible dream. I love that theater. Um, I love the people from that theater, and they didn't, because of the media, they didn't release the names of the victims until almost Monday of that. So I was going Friday, Saturday, Sunday, not knowing if people I know were still alive. That, I mean, there were people, everyone was on Facebook, and we were all talking about it because some of our friends did go to these things. People were concerned about us. We had a bunch of missed calls and things. It just wasn't a good thing. It's one of those things where you're like, I went and they put it's under lockdown still, but that's my theater. I felt like I was personally attacked. And then, of course, like the first thing I do once I'm able to get onto the internet is I go and I look at Reddit and 4chan, and you guys are assholes. Sorry, I know, NSFW. Whoops. But yeah, um, there's a lot of absolute jerks on there, and I understand it. I understand there's people who are like, well, as soon as something bad happens, the first reaction, either shock or so, would be to make fun of it, which a lot of people do. And then the next thing is people who are like, we need to ban guns. Oh, this is violence in the media, etc., etc. Here is my thoughts on it. Okay, gun violence. Well, this person, okay. Here's a few things I'd like people to know. Yes, this kid had problems. Yes, this kid smoked pot and used prescription drugs. Are prescription drugs and pot the problem? No, they are not. This kid is the problem. However, this kid, because he's not a man, we're going to put him to death, probably. Anyways, this boy, this little insignificant child, let me tell you what I think of people. I believe that every person is a bit like a garden, like soil. Kind of, I guess, if you want to be, you could say, from dust whence we came, to dust we shall return, etc. But no. Anyways, everyone is like a garden. The stuff we see, what we put in to that garden is like seeds. I mean, violence and sex and profanity and other stuff we see in the media around us, in our books, in our TV shows, in our movies, in our games, in our music. Those are all seeds. They don't take root in soil that's not receptive to them. When you throw seeds onto the ground, there's no chance that they'll grow. In order for them to grow into something, they need time, they need to be nurtured and watered, and they need the right kind of soil. The problem isn't that guns are readily available. No, this kid went into tens of thousands of dollars of credit card debt to buy all these weapons, which he did buy legally. But, guns, honestly, there was a massacre in China recently where 20 people were injured and some of them were killed by a person on a knife rampage. One person, one knife, 20 people. Some injured, some killed. Recently, they had a thing where this person killed 6 people with a knife. Honestly, so yeah. In Iran and many other places where they have Sharia law, they kill you with stones or bricks. Anything you put into your hands can be a weapon. Your own hands can be a weapon. You could go on a strangling massacre if you wanted. It happens. A gun is a tool. It can be used constructively for sport, or to get food, or to protect yourself, or it can be used to hurt people. That's what it is. It's just a tool. A screwdriver can do a lot of damage in the wrong hands. Or in the right hands, you can build a house, or a table, or a computer. You can build things with that screwdriver, or you can stab someone in the eye with it. It's not the screwdriver's fault. But yeah, let's get off that for a moment. Back to the fertile ground type of thing. You see, I can understand how people become depressed. Because when you're unemployed for over a year, you get depressed. You feel like you can't do anything. A lot of people feel like they can't do anything, so they seek out something to do. Some of us seek to build businesses. Some of us seek to make art. Some of us seek to hurt other people. There's people who want to live in infamy, and then people who want to create. Now, this boy, many of these seeds may have been planted, but they need the right type of soil to grow. So what do I blame this on? I blame it on the person who pulled the trigger. I don't blame it on Christopher Nolan. I don't blame it on movies or comic books or games. I don't blame this on Medal of Honor. I don't blame this on violent music. Violent music is there to entertain people who like that. I like some violent music. I like violent video games. I like violent movies. But I am not a violent person. I know better. I can keep these seeds from growing into something I don't want them to grow into. It's kind of like, for example, racism has to be carefully taught. You have to be taught very carefully that some class of people or type of people are terrible. You have to be taught to hate white people. You have to be taught to hate black people or Jewish people. You have to be taught to do this. You have to be taught that everyone in this particular class is out to get you. Be it the poor, be it the rich. You have to be taught that. You have to be receptive to that too, because you can grow up in the worst kinds of families and then be a perfectly normal person. It's how you respond to the seeds that are thrown at you. Kind of like the whole garbage in, garbage out, but sometimes, and most of the time, you do not have to accept the programming. My parents, who are, I guess you could say they're kind of fundamentalist, they spent a lot of time hammering into my head that you don't have to pay attention to everything that is told to you. You don't have to believe everything that is said. You don't have to watch everything on TV. You don't have to read everything that's written. You don't have to. It's not important to. What's important is to think for yourself, to question that. I mean, what was it, like I think it was Thomas Jefferson who said this, like, question with boldness even the very existence of God. Was it Thomas Jefferson? Wait, no, I think it was one of our founding fathers, and it was one of our very religious founding fathers. I mean, Thomas Jefferson used American funds to translate the Quran. He made various translations of the Bible, that some of them that were abridged, specifically for the use of using them as ministry tools. He did sermons on Sunday. And this is the person that everyone's like, oh, he's so godless. No, he's not. If you look at what he did, what he wrote, the majority of everything he wrote, he was indeed a religious person. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if you're one of those people who thinks there is something wrong with that, maybe you've been carefully taught to hate people who are religious, and that's a problem. You really shouldn't be hating people because of their religion, because of their race, or because of even the things they say. You need to judge people by what they do. And I looked at what the reactions to this, and people need to judge people on what they do. What did that boy do? He went into a theater and he shot people. He killed people. That is a bad thing to do, and he will be punished for it. And I've talked on that way too much. What I need to do is get to the interviews and stuff that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and cue up our features. And so thank you for listening to me rant for about 30 minutes. But yeah, let's go ahead and get this thing started. And welcome back to Radio DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and I'm here at ACON 23 with
Quentin Flynn.
And, well, our listeners might not be familiar with who you are and what you do. So, Quentin, who are you and what do you do?
Who am I and what do I do? I ask myself that every day when I wake up in the morning. I look at myself in the mirror and I say, who are you? What do you do? And then I have to go on to IMDb on the internet and check it out for myself, which you guys can do. Or I can just tell you, I'm the voice of Axel from Kingdom Hearts, Reno from Final Fantasy Advent Children, Raiden from the Metal Gear series, Johnny Quest, Timon from Timon and Pumbaa, Speed Racer, Spider-Man, Venom,
Christopher Walken.
Christopher
apparently.
Walken, yes, it's true. I do Walken. Paul McCartney, on times odd here and there. Ozzy Osbourne, man. And any number of other voices you'd like to hear.
Absolutely. Actually, I do want to talk to you a little bit about your musical career.
Yeah.
Apparently you're part of a group called the Snosberries.
That's right. I'm one half of the Snosberries. I play Winston. My brother Mitchell is played by Robbie Rist, former child star of the 70s TV show The Brady Bunch. And he was also one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from the movies of the 80s, I believe.
So you're okay. Just got kind of lost a train of thought there. Somebody mentioned the Brady Bunch. I was like, what? Just spaced out just a bit. But anywho, what got you started in voice acting?
Boy, what got me started in it? I had been doing impressions since I was a kid, and I got into theater and music in school, and in college I also studied radio, television, and film. And when I got out, I had seen an ad in the paper about voiceover workshops for voiceover acting in commercials. So I took an acting workshop in voiceovers, and then I saw that you could actually do this for a living. So I pursued it some more. And once I moved from my hometown in Cleveland, Ohio, out to Los Angeles, California, I saw that you could take an animation workshop. I took that animation workshop with a guy named Bob Bergen, who's the voice of Porky Pig, and it just broadened my horizons and let me see that I could do so much more. So I took all of those impressions that I'd been doing and applied it to the animation, and I took all the acting that I'd been doing and applied it to commercials, and put it all together, and with those skills and tools that I was given in training, I then applied it to that part of acting, the voice acting, and put myself together a demo, went out there and beat the pavement until I found an agent and got into the business.
Speaking of, going back a little bit, I wanted to talk a little bit about your music. You've done the music that you did with the Snosberries and such, but
Yeah.
I also noticed that you wrote apparently you wrote the theme song for Skyrim. What was that like? What it says on your IMDb. Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, that might be a mistake.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to correct that on there somehow. You might have to contact IMDb about that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one myself.
It's that one popular thing where people run around and it's got that fuss row da thing going. It's one of those little RPGs on the PC.
Yeah.
That was pretty. It was pretty popular. That whole "took an arrow to a knee" meme came from that.
Yeah, I don't think I wrote that.
Oh, well, they credited you for it.
Oh, I'll take the credit.
Oh, absolutely.
You
also, they said you wrote some music for Metal Gear Solid 4
Well,
on there. Yeah.
Well,
You might have to correct that.
Yeah, I'll take the paycheck though.
Well, actually, let's get back to Metal Gear Solid real quick. You're doing the voice of Raiden.
Raiden, yeah.
Raiden.
Yes.
You will also be voicing him in Revengeance, right?
That's
the new one
correct.
coming out?
Yes, absolutely.
Have you gotten to see the script for that yet?
Yes, we've been in production on that, and we are currently in production on that.
So it's under NDA. Any spoilers? Can't spoil anything for us?
Can't say a word except that it's going great, and you guys are really going to love it.
You're not going to die halfway through and we'll be playing as a new character, right?
Nope, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Also, you're working on. They announced the recent. They announced the voices for Kingdom Hearts 3D, the one for the 3DS coming out, and you're also going to be voicing Axel again in it, right?
If they announced me, then that would be correct.
Have they actually contacted you to tell you that yet?
I'm under an NDA on that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, since you do a lot of you do voice acting for animation, and video games, which do you prefer voice acting for?
I enjoy them both for different reasons. The video games we usually tend to work by ourselves, although in the Metal Gear series I've ended up doing dialogue scenes and sometimes group scenes. And animation we tend to work in an ensemble, and I do enjoy working in an ensemble because there's an opportunity to work off of other actors, and it's more fun to kind of bounce things off of each other that way, and oftentimes there's room for ad libs or improvisation.
So, since you did also work a little bit on Robot Chicken, according to your IMDb, how
Yes.
much of that is really improvisation? Can't pronounce things.
It's crazy like that.
Oh, yeah, pronunciation. But how much of that is improvisation,
Yeah.
and how much of that is actually scripted?
With Robot Chicken, it's 99% of it, I would say, is scripted. I mean, there's very little of it is improvised. If anything comes up, it's usually accidental or anything on the fly is I would say is seldom. Seth and Matt really have it down to a science, and it's a ball. I mean, those guys write killer scripts, and the direction is fantastic, and we just have a really great time doing it. But sometimes things will come up in the room when we're working together, and whether it comes from their side of the glass or mine, and then they're open to it. Yeah.
You've also done apparently some voiceover for Will Ferrell. Would you care to explain a little bit of that?
Oh, well, no, actually, Will and I were in an improv group years and years and years ago together, and we had done what was called live movie dubbing for a group called the LA Connection, and so that's what that had was probably listed on the IMDb page.
Yeah, we were looking through that through Wikipedia, see if we could find some dirt on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, you have worked with him before. Are you going to be an anchorman too? Maybe a small cast?
God, I wish. I haven't seen Will in years.
Oh well.
Yeah, but if anybody out there knows Will, please mention him to me.
Okay.
Ron Burgundy, the Anchorman.
Yes, especially considering they're doing a sequel.
Yeah.
About time, really.
I know. It's a great character.
So, we'll go back a little bit to the band, the Snozberries. Do you play an instrument in it?
I play percussion mostly, and I sing and play harmonica as well. Robbie Wrist plays guitar. I do play guitar, just not usually in the Snozberries. It's kind of a mashup. It's like, if anybody out there remembers the Smothers Brothers, it's kind of a teaming up of like that. We are brothers who have the same mothers. I'm the result of Paul McCartney and our groupie mother on the Beatles' final tour, and my brother Mitchell, Paul Williams, and a turkey baster.
Ooh, that's got to be an interesting. That has to make for an interesting Thanksgiving every year.
That's right. So we go out there and we do our act, and it's usually a combination of rock and folk music, two-part harmonies. Not unlike Tenacious D, something like that, or like I said, the Smothers Brothers.
So, how many conventions have you been to this year?
I've done probably a dozen already this year.
What do you think of Akon so far?
So far, so good. I just got out of an autograph line, and it was packed to the gills. And I'm looking at, there's thousands and thousands of people here. I mean, I think they've estimated at least 35,000.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's huge.
And they're all here to get your autograph.
Just mine.
Just yours.
Mine alone, ladies
Absolutely.
and gentlemen.
They don't know who these other people are.
They don't have a clue.
Mm-hmm.
They're just here for the mighty Q.
Absolutely. So, what are you currently working on, aside from the video games, and what can you currently talk about that you're currently working on?
Well, I am working on Guild Wars 2, which is a new video game that's coming out. I play Rexus Rage Spear and another character named Arlen, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I am working on Robot Chicken again. I did an episode for them about a week ago, and I'm going to be back in with them this coming Monday. I'm writing some new music, and I work with Robbie Wrist on that. And what else can I tell you? More conventions coming up. I'll be doing Colossal Con in Sandusky, Ohio next weekend, and I know I've got a couple other conventions coming up after that. I'll be in Minneapolis, and then I'll be in Dublin in July. So I'm busy.
It's always good to keep busy.
Yeah.
So, what's the with all this crazy stuff happening with like the convention schedule and all that? What's the craziest thing that's happened to you at a convention?
I don't think we can talk about that.
Oh.
That's off the record.
Oh, okay.
No.
So, well, we can be not safe for work, but if it's not safe for reputations, I guess we should just table that.
Exactly. I will say some of the most unusual places I've signed autographs, one of them was a baby's forehead. That was strange.
I'm sure that kid will be very proud of their parents.
Yeah.
Well, at least it wasn't non-permanent ink, right?
Well, let's hope.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a child running around with your name on their forehead.
Yeah.
Probably being picked on at school over it too. It's like, what?
Exactly.
Well, how do you find the Actually, yeah. Let me see if I can rephrase this one right. Okay. This is a question we do ask a lot of voice actors and a lot of the people who show up at the conventions, the guests and stuff. But here at the convention, if you notice, there's kind of a bit of a high energy here at the convention.
Yes.
Do you have any tips for like our listeners or for the people who attend the conventions? Because I've noticed that when people have a huge energy level here at the convention, but when they leave the convention to go back to their everyday normal lives, they kind of lose that. They tend to go into a bit of a shell. Do you have any tips or tricks that you could let them know about to keep that energy high, to be more outgoing outside of the convention?
Wow. That's one I never even thought of. Well, I know there's a decompression time, that happens because I go through the same thing, and I don't know what to do. That's a good question. Maybe keep in touch online with some of your friends. Get involved in other local groups if there are any. Look forward to new and other exciting conventions. I have no idea. I try to find just pleasures in everyday life. Reading in some of the science fiction or fantasy type novels, television, film, things online that interest me. And explore, the different realms. And I think that's probably what a lot of the fans do as well. There's so much out there, and there's so many ways to keep in touch through multimedia. But I can understand the letdown after being at such a heightened state, in the con itself.
So what are you currently reading? Just kind of wondering.
It's actually one of the newest one of the newest books in the Bourne series.
Yeah. So, what do you think about it so far? Is it as good as the previous ones?
Yeah, it's really well done.
Have you ever considered any writing yourself? Because I noticed that you went to college for journalism.
Oh yeah, broadcast journalism. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you ever considered writing?
Yeah, I've done a bit, and I was working on a Paul McCartney one-man show, I was writing that. It's currently on hiatus, so we'll see. You never know. Could come around.
It could eventually take wings.
Hey, it could, man. Take wings. Wingspan. Good stuff. Mind yourself. Go veggie. Stay out of jail, especially in Tokyo.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know that from experience. Okay.
Nor do I.
Good.
Yeah.
But yes, so thank you so very much for sitting down with us and having a weird meandering conversation.
Yeah, I know, it was cool, man.
Yeah, it's cool. But yeah, is there anything you want to plug before you go? Like your Twitter, Facebook, any websites, anything else? Like, tell the people what up.
Well, you can see me on Facebook. My website is QuintonFlynn.com.
Could you spell that for them?
Oh, QuintonFlynn.com. And my Twitter link is on there, I'm sure, and Facebook as well. Quinton Flynn is my Facebook. And I'm trying to think what my Twitter is. Is it Quinton.Flynn or is it just Quinton Flynn? I'm blanking at the moment.
It happens. It's been a long day for everyone.
Yeah, so far. And not much else to plug, but if you're interested about the Snozberries, then put it out there online and write Robbie Wrist. He's my partner in crime, and you can find him on Facebook as well. Yeah. Push for the Snozberries. More Snozberries.
So we can purchase it. Are any of those on iTunes yet?
No, but we should actually do some. Some of my solo material is, though, under Quentin Flynn. And we took the name, it's interesting when we got the name The Snozberries. We took it from the original movie, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
The Snozberries taste like snozberries. And it's like, who ever heard of a snozberry? Then, he grabs her by the cheek and gives that little spiel. It's like, we are
the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
I always liked that part.
I love that. Yeah. Robbie and I loved that. And we also loved the 70s rock group from Cleveland called the Raspberries, which featured lead vocalist Eric Carmen. And they had a hit in the 70s called Go All the Way and I Want to Be With You. And then he went on to write All By Myself, which was a mega hit, All by myself, don't want to be, which everyone knows.
Yes. Actually, I do know it.
Of course.
I've heard it covered a few times, too.
Oh, yeah. Celine Dion covered it, and, gosh. God
covered it or murdered it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the latter.
Probably the latter.
Yeah.
Canadians.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Yep.
But Eric, he had the big hit in the 70s with that, and his is the standard by which everyone else is compared to. And so we thought, raspberries, snozberries, perfect. It's music, it's magical, and that's what we've gone for.
And it's the dreams that you're dreaming.
That's it.
Absolutely.
You got it.
It's been fun talking to you, and
thank you.
We do have limited time, sadly, but I wish you the best of luck for going on forward.
Thank you, my friend.
Anything final you'd like to say to the audience, our studio audience?
Well, I hope you've all enjoyed this chat as much as we have. I have, and it's great to be speaking outward towards you. God bless you all. Keep yourself well. Cheers.
Mm-hmm. Now, this has been Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth with Radio DMG, and my guest has been
Quentin Flynn, and you're in like Flynn.
Absolutely. And good night.
Hi, this is Greg Weisman, the producer of Young Justice, and you're listening to Radio DMG.
And welcome back to Radio DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth. I'm over here at Denver Comic Con number 1, 2012, with
Greg Weisman.
And Greg Weisman, who are you and what do you do?
I am the writer-producer of Young Justice, and I am also the creator of Gargoyles, and I worked on Spectacular Spider-Man and a bunch of other things.
Going back to, I guess, Gargoyles really quick, how did you approach Disney with the idea for that show?
Well, actually, I worked at Disney at the time. I was director of series development, and I've always sort of been fascinated with gargoyles. In college, I studied in Oxford for a semester, and I was going around taking pictures of gargoyles and collecting postcards with gargoyles. It's not like I had in mind, someday I'm going to do an animated series about it, but they just interested me. And so years later, when I was at Disney, it was more than a decade later, there was a show that we were doing called Gummy Bears, which we all really liked, but which we felt wasn't getting enough respect. Partially because there was another show called Care Bears out at the same time, and people confused the two. But also because, they were cute little, cuddly, multicolored bears, and we thought it had this great backstory that Jim Magon had created, and all this rich stuff, but we just felt like it wasn't cutting through the clutter. So we wanted to do a show like Gummy Bears, but one that cut through the clutter. So I suggested Gargoyles because that was a little edgier than, that was the era when the Gremlins movie was out and that kind of thing. So Gargoyles felt edgier. And we were going to have all this great medieval backstory, but we were going to set it in the modern world. And so we just thought, that'll cut through a little better, but it was still a light comedy adventure show, and we pitched that to Michael Eisner, and he didn't like it. So we went back to the drawing board because my boss liked it and wanted us to work on it some more, and we reworked the whole show as an action drama. And we went and we loved the show, and we created all these characters, and we put together this big 40-45 card pitch, and we pitched it to Michael Eisner, and he didn't like it, and he didn't buy it, but Jeffrey Katzenberg liked it, and Jeffrey suggested we work on it some more, and so we went back to the drawing board a second time, but this time we didn't want to change the show. We liked the show a lot. We didn't want to change it, so we just changed the pitch. And we really shrunk the pitch down. It went from being like 45 cards to like 28. We really focused the pitch on Goliath and Elisa, our two leads. Everything that was in the original pitch eventually found its way back into the show. We hadn't really changed the show, but we found a way to pitch it way more coherently. But we hadn't added anything. We just cut stuff out. Rearranged things maybe, but nothing new. And at the end of the pitch, Michael bought it. He liked it. He bought it. And Jeffrey looked at me and he pointed at me and said, "You added a lot to that, didn't you?" And I said, "Yes, I did." Because I'm not an idiot. I didn't want him to know that. No, we didn't add anything. We just reworked it. So that's how we sold it.
Excellent. Gargoyles was a bit different for Disney because it dealt with, despite having some humorous aspects to it, it dealt with a lot of very serious issues. We talked about literacy or guns and such, and even some of the stuff in the original pitch. How were you able to get some of that past, I guess you could say the atmosphere of Disney at the time?
It wasn't as hard as everyone seems to think. I mean, we had a lot of help just because Batman the Animated Series existed. The fact that that series was out there and doing well, and kids were watching it, and it was really cool, and it was a drama, gave us the freedom to do a drama, and people at Disney, they'd be like, is this our thing? And it's like, well, look, they're doing it over here. And Disney had always been a studio that did comedy and drama, and we just sort of occasionally had to remind people of that. But on one level, my boss Gary Kreisel, he liked the idea that we had all these shows with funny animals, and we loved them. These were great shows: Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, Goof Troop, Bonkers, all these shows with funny animals. But I think Gary and a lot of us had a concern that we were beginning to feel a little homogenous. Tailspin. Any one of those shows, Gummy Bears is a great show in and of itself, but if all your block is filled with that stuff, then your block feels very homogenous. And so Gary was looking for different stuff on all sorts of things. We developed another show called Schnookums and Meat, which was fast, funny, out there cartoons. And on the other side of that, we did Gargoyles, which was this action drama. And that wasn't hard. And in terms of the issues we dealt with, we got a lot of positive press for that, so we got a lot of encouragement. We had a great standards and practices executive. We weren't at a network, we were in syndication. So we had our own S&P executive who had been trained at a network, but she was great. Her name was Adrienne Bello, and she really got the idea of consequences. Like, we could do something that was maybe a little harsh, like shoot Elisa. But as long as we were showing the honest consequences of that, so that any kid watching the show wouldn't be like, "Oh, shoot my friend, that's cool." No, they'd see that Elisa nearly died, that she lost a lot of blood, that it was scary, that it was traumatizing for Elisa, for Broadway, for Goliath. And as long as we showed the consequences, Adrienne was all for it and was a great support to the show, and so were all our bosses. And I'd love to say, oh, we were these righteous champions and we pushed it through, but it wasn't that hard.
You didn't have to walk barefoot through hell to get it done.
No, we really didn't.
So, how did you start at Disney?
I started at Disney. I was going to graduate school at USC. Getting my master's in professional writing with a focus on playwriting. And it was a 2-year program, and I'd gone through the first year, and I started going on what they call informational interviews. Like I'd call someone up cold and say, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you," and they're like, "Well, we're not hiring." I'm like, "I'm not looking for a job. I got this job," because I was teaching at USC. "I got this job at USC. I couldn't take a job if you wanted, but I really want to know what you do." And I met with a bunch of people in Hollywood, studio executives and in feature films and live action, all sorts of things. But I also met with this guy, Gary Kreisel, who at the time was head of television, live action television at Disney. But he was starting up a division, and I didn't know this. He was starting up a division for TV animation. And he didn't tell me this, but he had it in the back of his head, I guess. And when he met me and he saw my resume, and I'd studied Shakespeare in England, and I had this great liberal arts education from Stanford University, but I'd also written comic books. And I think what he liked about the mix in my resume is that a lot of the sort of geeky people he talked to, their frame of reference was Spielberg movies. And I'm not knocking those, but the point is that that's not Spielberg's frame of reference. Spielberg, knows all this mythic stuff. He's looking back, but all these people that he was talking to, they went back as far as, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars.
So kind of a copy of a copy.
Right, and I was looking at Shakespeare and Homer and Dickens and that kind of stuff. No more original, but at least the original sources, so to speak. And at the same time, he talked to people like that with that kind of education, and they'd look down their nose at doing cartoons. But because of my comic book background at DC, he knew that I wasn't going to get all snooty about animation, so we kind of hit it off. And I knew we hit it off, but like I said, I had another year of school and I was teaching, but I thought, this is a guy that might pay off for me, and he's the only one I kept in touch with. And saying I kept in touch with him is almost a joke, because what that meant is once a month. I didn't want to call too often and become a pest, but I wanted to call often enough that I'd be remembered. Once a month I'd call, and he had a secretary named Jerry at the time, and I'd call Jerry and I'd say, hey, it was in last month and I kind of like to talk to Gary, and she'd be like, oh, he's really busy, but he's got you on his phone list. And I would call again in about a month, and she'd like, oh yeah, he's been meaning to call you. He really has, I swear, but he hasn't had time, but I'll keep you on the list. And so this went on for like 9 months until I was almost done with school. And so like in May, I called up and I said, and Jerry and I hit it off. I mean, not that I knew her in person, but just on the phone we sort of hit it off. And again, you try and play it easy. If you get too intense, then you're a pest and whatever. And I was always really easy, and I never tried to make her feel guilty about him not calling. So then in May, finally, as that year was coming around, and this was like 1989, I want to say, I said, hey, yeah, the thing is, I'm graduating. I'm getting my master's in 3 weeks, and I am kind of looking for a job now. I would kind of like to talk with him again. And I could tell she felt guilty at this point, because I'd been kind of cool about the whole thing, and it had been 9 months, and I still hadn't talked to the guy a second time. And she's like, let me just put you on the books here. So I got a second appointment. I met with him. We still hit it off. He had me meet with Bruce Cranston, who was his guy opening the development of TV animation. By that time, he knew he was putting Gary knew he was putting TV animation together. So he wanted a guy like me in there, and Bruce hired me as just a junior development guy. And then something sort of lucky for me happened, which is that I'd been there 4 days. 4 days. That's how much experience I had working in television. And Bruce had to go to Europe for a 2-week trip, business trip, because we were opening animation studios in London and in Paris. So he was going to just check on their progress.
For Roger Rabbit and such, right?
No.
Oh, wait.
No, this was for a Goofy movie and...
Disney Movie Tunes.
Movie Tunes, right. And so he goes for 2 weeks to check out how it's going with these studios. And he gets over there, and I guess they were a disaster. Both studios just were a disaster, and so he wound up staying in Europe for 6 months. And at the time, the development department, I mean, now Disney TV animation is huge, but at the time, we were a pretty small organization, maybe 30, 40 people tops, and the development department was Bruce, me, and a secretary that we shared with publicity. But that secretary worked for Bruce, she didn't work for me, so she was still working for Bruce, helping him out, like making sure his bills got paid because he was stuck in Europe for 6 months. But fundamentally, she worked for publicity. because her boss wasn't doing development. He was over making sure there were desks in the studio, in Paris. That meant the entire development department was me, who had all of 4 days worth of experience. And the one thing, that was just luck, but the one thing I'll say for me is that I jumped on the opportunity. I knew nothing, so I made sure to train. So I spent a lot of time with Gary, my boss. I spent a lot of time with Tad Stones, who was at the time developing Darkwing Duck, what ended up being Darkwing Duck. The name at the time was 00 Duck. We thought it was more of a spy show, then it became more of a superhero show. But I developed that, I helped Tad develop that show. It was Tad's show, but he taught me a ton about how to develop a show, working with him on Darkwing. And then I also worked with Alan Zasloff, who was a producer, producer-director on DuckTales. And I had to story edit 5 episodes of DuckTales. I'd never story edited before, but we needed to get 5 more episodes of DuckTales done very quickly. And they didn't want to hire a story editor just for 5 episodes. So, well, you do it, kid. So I story edited these 5. And they made sure I had a really strong writer working for me, but I just story edited all these episodes on my own, and I worked with Alan Burnett, who was doing the DuckTales movie at the time, and so I just made sure to work with these really great people and just try and absorb everything, and to learn as much about the entire animation process, not just development, not just the writing, but the whole process. I can't draw at all. I make stick figures look bad, but I know what the process is, and I made sure I didn't just limit myself to the stuff that ultimately I'd be doing. I made sure I understood pre-production, post-production, production, the whole thing, so that by the time Bruce came back 6 months later, I'd been doing that job. And one thing I will say, Gary and Bruce were great bosses, because Bruce could have come back from that 6 months and seen this kid and felt intimidated. He could have felt like, hey, this kid's trying to take my job, I better push this guy down. Instead, Bruce came back and said, Greg's been doing this job, we got to promote this guy, because they were paying me an assistant salary, and so, they promoted me, and they made me head of current programming, and from there I became manager of series development, then director of series development, and then we developed Gargoyles. It was just one of the shows I was working on, but we had trouble finding a producer for that show. It took us a while to find the right guy to produce that show, but the show had been picked up, and so we had to make all these decisions that a producer would normally make, and we didn't have a producer, so I ended up making those decisions. So by the time we found Frank Parr, who was great, great director, producer for the show, I went to my bosses and I said, guys, I don't want to give this one up. I've been working on it with it too closely. I created it. I want to stay with it. I want to produce the show with Frank. And they're like, I don't know, you've never produced a show before. And I'm like, well, that's true, but I'd never been a development executive before, and I picked that up pretty quick. And they said, okay, we'll let you do it if you keep being a development executive at the same time, and we pay you as a development executive, which is less money. So I basically had 2 full-time jobs for about 10 months for the lesser amount of money. and we did 13 episodes in 10 months. And the show was a hit, and they wanted to make more, and we wound up, it's a long story, we wound up with an order for season 2 of 52 episodes in the same amount of time. And I said, okay, we're going to have to staff way up, but I said, there's no way I can do these 2 jobs at once anymore. So I moved over and became a full-time producer on Gargoyles, and that was pretty much it. I'd been an executive for about 5 years, and then from that point on, I was sort of a writer-producer.
So, what do you think of Denver Comic Con so far?
I think it's great. I think it's amazing this is the first year. I knew it was the first year walking in the door, but if no one had told me that and I came in and then someone told me, this is only our first year, I would have been stunned. Huge crowd. Show seems pretty well run to me. I didn't even know I would have an autograph table here, but they had one for me. I'm like, well, this is cool, and I've done a couple panels, which have both been fun. I had a panel on Gargoyles and Spectacular Spider-Man, which was great, and then I was supposed to moderate this voice acting panel But we had Billy West and Tom Kane on the panel and Kari Payton, and I'm like, why am I here? Because there was nothing for me to moderate. These guys just went. I mean, I was calling on people to ask questions, but they didn't even really need me to do that. But it was sure fun sitting up there and listening to Billy and Tom and Kari talk. So, they've got great guests. I mean, I'm just stunned by the lineup of guests they've got for a first-year con. It's pretty amazing.
So, real quick question. How many of these cons do you go to per year?
Well, I always go to San Diego. That's work for me. San Diego's really developed into being work. Back once upon a time, it was more fun. But now it's so huge and so big that the main reason I go there is work related. I'm usually doing some comic book or some cartoon that I have to promote, or I'm taking meetings with people, particularly people from the East Coast who I don't get to see that often. And I'm not saying I don't have a good time in San Diego, I do, but that's really a working trip. Otherwise, I probably go, not counting San Diego, to I'd say maybe just 1 or 2 cons a year. There was one year when I went to 5, and by the 5th one I was dying. It was just overkill and it was too much. So I generally go where I'm invited, and I generally get invited to 1 or 2 additional cons a year, and that's plenty. And I'm always happy to be a guest. I have a great time. I love talking to the fans, and I love talking about the stuff that I've worked on. In fact, as you can probably tell from this, I can go on for hours talking about this stuff. So
yeah, we went a little over the 15-minute mark, but I guess I'm going to go one last question.
Sure.
Okay. At these conventions, I've noticed that a lot of people that go to these are just really high on energy, really a lot of good energy running around. But when they get out into the normal, everyday ho and hum of life, they kind of lose that energy and deflate. Is there any advice you could give people to be more assertive or to be more energetic or more social outside of a convention setting?
Well, I think the internet is a really double-edged sword. On the one hand, I think it's a great place to meet people, to socialize as a first step. So what I'd recommend is, get online and join some page or some club or something like that where there are local people in it. That then you get together at a pizza place or something like that and have a good time like you're having your own little mini convention in this one booth at the pizza place, and that'll help keep your energy up. The thing I think where the internet, like I said, becomes sort of this double-edged sword is they just stay online. They stay in their own room. They're anonymous on the internet. They don't interact in a real way. And I've found, particularly since I started doing Young Justice, that the anonymity of the internet is really negative. It really encourages negative behavior, particularly for a new generation of kids who grew up on the internet. Like when I was a kid, the internet literally didn't exist. And so you don't learn these lessons of anonymity, which allow you to say the most obnoxious stuff because you know it's never going to come back to bite you because no one knows who you are. And so that even when people do know who they are, they're saying obnoxious stuff. Rude. I'm not saying that people are entitled to their opinions. I don't have a problem with someone, logging onto my site and saying, I didn't really like this episode. I wasn't happy with the way Superman was acting towards Superboy. That's fine. You want to be respectful and not like my stuff? That's cool. But a lot of the posts on my site in the last year or so have been flat out rude. And that comes from anonymity, and that encourages negativity and isolation. And so, like I said, I would use the internet as a tool to become social. And that's about using the internet to find people, but then once you find them, meet with them. Get in person with them. And it doesn't have to be a convention. It's the old, cliche of even family members. How come the only time we ever see each other is at a funeral? It's always sad stuff. It's like, well, no one made it that way. Go out to dinner. see each other and have a good time. It doesn't have to be at a convention. It can just be for fun. And I guess that's my best advice, is that you use the internet, but you don't use it exclusively.
So it's kind of the alone together theory, where the more connected the worlds become, the more apart people are becoming.
Well, it encourages that. I mean, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. It encourages the positive side of it too, but it's really easy to slip into the negative side of it. And so I'm not this guy who's saying down with the internet. I'm just saying use it for its positive, constructively. That's it, exactly.
Well, thank you very much for the interview. This has been Radio DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and I've been here with
Greg Weissman.
And good night. Say good night.
Good night, thanks.
Hi there, this is Vic Mignogna, and you're listening to Radio DMG.
My first bacon, you got a friend in meat.
And welcome back to Radio DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and I'm here at ACON 23, 2012 with my guest.
Hello, Mile High Mouth. I'm Vic Mignogna. It's nice to see you again, my friend.
And nice to see you too.
I love your name, Mile High Mouth. That's very cool.
I actually went ahead and got the URL for that, the Mile High Mouth. It takes you directly to Radio DMG.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. So, who are you and what do you do, just in case, people forgot?
Well, I'm an anime and video game voice actor. I've been doing it for, 13 or 14 years, I think, and I have done over 200 different series and video games, and I also do a lot of music professionally, and that's who I am and what I do.
What voice acting particular roles are you most famous for, really?
Well, I would guess probably without question one of the most well-known shows is Full Metal Alchemist. I play Edward Elric in Full Metal. But then, of course, there are, there's Broly in Bleach, and there's there's Broly in Dragon Ball Z, and I just created a new show there. And then there's Ikaku in Bleach, and Berter in Berter in Dragon Ball Z, and then there's still 4 or 5 characters in Naruto that I play, Obito and Nagato and a few others. Kakaishi, which is on Cartoon Network right before Full Metal, I think I play Yoshimori in that. Tamaki in Ouran High School Host Club. Dark Indian Angel, Phi in Tsubasa, Zero in Vampire Knight. A pretty large number of shows.
You also worked as a music producer before, right?
Yes, actually, yeah. I've actually been writing and producing music twice as long as I've been voice acting, and I've produced 20 or 25 records for other artists, different styles. I wrote a lot of music for ad agencies and production companies, broadcast music, and I've written hundreds of things myself, my own work. I actually have 6 different music CDs that are all available on iTunes, and they're also available in the store at www.risenbullrangers.com. Shameless plug.
No problem.
And then I also have them at conventions, and I do concerts at conventions occasionally. So,
yeah, I was looking through a bit of the bands and stuff that you've produced stuff for. You worked with a lot of Christian bands like DC Talk, right?
That's right. That's right.
What was that like working with DC Talk?
Well, they were nobody. They weren't DC Talk when I worked with them. They were college friends. We went to school together. I was a couple of years older than they were, and I had been writing and producing and recording music for a while by then. And Toby McKeon, the guy that kind of created and started DC Talk, kind of the lead guy, came to me and asked me if I would help him produce a demo. So I helped him produce a demo of 10 songs, and that demo got them signed, and the record label released the demo as their first album. So all of my work, vocals and arrangements and keyboards, some co-writing, was on their first record. And then they kind of took off from there, and that was just, the rest is history, as they say.
So, I remember their first album being a little bit more rap. So did you?
A lot more rap, yeah.
Well,
rap. Toby's a rapper. That's what he did. And back when, we did that was like late 80s. Rap was really kind of, getting big. And he wanted to do Christian raps, and so he wrote these raps, and he needed music and arrangement and somebody who knew how to produce and record. And so I literally took him to a studio that I worked at a lot in South Jersey. We would drive up there on the weekend from college. We would go up on a Friday and spend a couple of days recording, and then come back down to school.
Have you worked with any other Christian artists like Amy Grant or Carmen?
I did some live work with Carmen, but not a great deal. And I've become friends with several artists, Christian artists, but no, I have not done any music work for them.
Looking a little bit at what you've done in commercials, I noticed you've done commercials for like Esso or and different other commercial work. What commercials have you done that you're the most proud of?
Meaning what?
Like commercial work, as in TV commercials, radio commercials.
You mean written music for?
Oh, yes.
Oh gosh, I don't even know that I could even begin to zero in on any one that I'm most proud of. I've literally done hundreds. I mean, there are literally hundreds of pieces of music that I've written, whether it's just music or whether it's a jingle that has like some kind of a singing line to it. I've done so many that there isn't any one particular that I would say I'm most proud of that one. And a lot of times, commercials are not written out of emotion or feeling, or I was feeling blue and so I wrote this song. That kind of music is written out of being hired to create something, and it's a very whether or not you feel like writing a song makes no difference. You have a deadline. You need to have this done and turned in by 4:00 today. So you can't wait for inspiration. You just have to kind of draw on your experience. But I've done so many over the years, I don't know that I would have a favorite.
I had a question. I noticed on some examples of your resume, you also had a teaching job at one point?
Well, right after college, immediately after college, the year after college, I was invited to teach acting and speech courses at a private high school in Jacksonville, Florida. I didn't have any big plans at the time. I didn't have something lined up right after college. So I thought, well, that sounds like fun. I mean, it's not a career move. It's not something I intend to do for very long, but that could be fun. So I went down there for a year and taught at the high school and worked with the football team and had a good time. But at the end of the year, I was ready to be done with that. That was not like I said, that was not something I wanted to do for very long.
Oh yeah. So it just wasn't your calling.
Right. Yeah. So, it wasn't something I ever intended to do for any long period of time. The administrator of the school had come to our college and seen a play that I was in, and he approached me after the show and he said, I really enjoyed your performance, and I see that you're a senior. Do you have any plans next year? And I said, well, not really, not yet. And he said, well, we're looking for someone to teach acting and speech and drama at our high school in Jacksonville, Florida. And I thought, okay, why not, right?
Yeah. Oh, when did you realize that acting was your calling?
Well, I've been acting since I was very young. I never considered it a calling.
So more acting and acting up?
It was just something. Well, there's plenty of that. But ever since I was very young, I always enjoyed performing, whether it was in church, in productions for church or productions for school, or community productions, or it didn't really matter. I just always enjoyed it. I enjoyed singing. I enjoyed acting. And I continued as I grew through middle school and junior high and high school to take any opportunity that I could to get involved in productions, stage productions, and anything on camera and singing. And so it was something that I had just always been developing my whole life. And it was never, I never intended to do it professionally. I never, like a lot of people, it was so funny, when I graduated from college, a lot of people said, so are you going to move to LA and, hit it big? You're going to go be a star? Are you going to move to New York and get on Broadway and do musicals? And I thought, no, I really, no, I'm not going to do that. my degree was actually in film production, so I was very interested in the production of film and shooting and directing and editing and lighting, that kind of thing. But when the opportunity to act ever presented itself, I certainly took advantage of it, and that's exactly how I got into voice acting. A friend of mine asked me if I would be interested in auditioning for this company that bought these Japanese shows and turned them into, recorded them in English and needed actors, and I thought, well, that sounds like fun. It never occurred to me that it would ever become a career move. It was just sounded like fun. So I went and did it, and it got cast, and then they got another show, and I got cast again, and then they got another show, and I got cast again, and then I met other people at other companies like Funimation and companies in LA and companies in New York, and it just kind of took off.
So, growing up in a religious environment, you said that you did a lot of church and such. How do you feel that's affected your career and helped shape you to be the person you are?
Well, I would say that it very strongly defines the person that I am. I'm one of those people that doesn't think that religion is a hobby. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, I understand. A lot of people consider religion like stamp collecting or building models. It's just a hobby. It's something they do on Sundays. Or, it's just a part of their makeup. Well, for me, that is not what it should be. Not be a hobby. It is a way of life. It is a foundational decision. If a person claims to have a relationship with God, if a person claims to want to live a life that is pleasing to God, that's going to affect every single solitary decision they make. I could be a stamp collector, and you and I could be friends for 10 years, and you'd never know I was a stamp collector, right? Yeah. Because it wouldn't necessarily have any impact in my daily life. Well, if you claim to be a child of God, and you claim to be a representative for God, it's going to have an impact in everything you do. It's going to have an impact in the way you talk to people. It's going to have an impact in the way you act at work, at school, the decisions you make, it's going to impact everything. So, it's not just a part of my life. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even like the word religion. I feel that religion has probably done more damage to people having a real relationship with their Creator than anything else has. I always tell people religion is human beings, mankind's attempt to package and describe and bottle and contain and define God. But God cannot be contained. He cannot be defined. He cannot be completely understood and boxed in. And I think religion, that word, it conjures up so many negative connotations in people's minds. Religion is like the hobby part of it, and relationship is really the essence of it. So I try to encourage kids, when people come up to me and they're like, I hear you're really religious. You should see their faces when I say, No, I'm not religious at all.
Exactly.
It's like, well, wait a minute, I heard that you this, and I heard that you do this. I'm like, that's true, but I'm not religious at all.
It was kind of like, there's that little sound clip on DC Talk's album, Jesus Freak, where they go like the single biggest cause of atheism today is Christians who profess the Lord with their lips and deny Him with their actions.
Right, sure.
In other words, you have to walk the walk if you're going to talk.
And to be honest with you, nobody's perfect. There are hypocrites everywhere. I will be the first one to tell you and your audience listening, I screw up all the time. That doesn't mean that I don't have a goal, though. That doesn't mean that I don't aspire to be what God wants me to be. I mess up all the time. Arguably, one of the greatest Christians who ever lived, the Apostle Paul, who wrote a good portion of the New Testament, said himself, the things I want to do, I don't do. The things that I don't want to do, I end up doing. He struggled with it. That's the duality of human beings.
Yeah, even started as Saul, did he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We do things that we hate about ourselves. We hate that we did this. We don't want to do this, and we end up doing it.
And then you end up on the road to Damascus.
Right. So I think that the point is not, and people need to understand that just because somebody calls themselves a believer in Jesus or a Christian doesn't mean they're perfect. It doesn't mean they have it all figured out. It doesn't mean that when they screw up or they swear or they do something that the outside world goes, oh, I can't believe they call themselves a Christian. Well, that doesn't make them perfect. They're just as human as you or me. Mm-hmm. But the difference is that they want to follow a path that God has set out for them. It doesn't mean they don't stumble and fall. And so I when I think that line that DC Talk said is somewhat right, and that is that one of the biggest causes. I would rephrase it a little bit. I would say one of the biggest things that dissuades people from a relationship with God are people who claim to have a relationship with God, mm-hmm. and then you see no evidence of it in their lives or in their actions.
Well, going back to a Damascus moment, what would you feel would be has been a Damascus moment for you?
Wow, what a great question. Goodness gracious. I would have to say, and this is rather personal, but I mean I have to tell the truth, and that is, I went through a really painful divorce 11 or 12 years ago. It was not something I wanted, but at that moment I was leading music at my church. I was there all the time. I was very heavily involved in leadership at the church, and when my ex-wife kind of went off the deep end and decided she wanted something different, I remember if I ever heard the voice of God in my life, it was then. And this is what he said. Okay, Vic, you've been talking the talk all these years when everything's fine and you've got everything going for you. Now's the chance to really prove that you really believe what you say you believe. Now's your chance in this heart-breaking, heart-wrenching, disastrous, tragic experience where you feel like your insides are being ripped out. Now's your chance to show people that you don't just trust me when everything's peachy, that you trust me regardless. This is where your faith, this is where the rubber meets the road of your faith, Vic. Is it just a convenient faith? While you've got a beautiful big home and wife and kids and stepkids and career and money in the bank and you're healthy and strong and active, is that when you have strong faith? Or are you going to continue to trust me and have faith in the midst of this disaster? So that was very, very much a Damascus moment for me, and I think my relationship with God took a very big turn, deeper at that point in my life.
I'm going to go ahead and ask you a question we ask a lot of people we've interviewed.
Okay.
This is it's a bit of a lighter question, in a way.
That's probably good at this point in time.
Absolutely.
Let's climb out of the deep end here.
No problem. Well, I've noticed that at conventions there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of people tend to be very open and out there and active, and when they're at a convention, but when they leave the convention, they tend to go into a little bit of a shell.
Absolutely.
They tend to not want to be the person they are at these conventions when they're in the outside world. Do you have any advice to help people get over that shell?
Well, I know why it is that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they don't feel comfortable out in the world. They feel different. They feel strange. They're ostracized. They're often teased for whatever reason, because they wear black, or because they like anime, or because they have colored hair, or because they're kind of not sociable and quiet. And an anime convention is the chance for those people to realize that they're not alone, that there are 20,000 people here in Dallas just like them. So for one weekend, they are the norm. And they can be themselves, and they feel so relaxed. I have a cousin who has battled with a great deal of depression and alienation and difficulties, and my mom brought her to an anime convention that I was a guest at, and she has made all of these friends from the convention, and her parents say she's a different girl today because she suddenly realized that there were tens upon thousands of people out there just like her. So what I would encourage all of you guys listening who are tempted once the weekend is over to go back into your lives and kind of shrink back into a shell, remember that you're not alone. Remember that you are the same person that you were during the weekend when you were having a great time. And don't allow any other human being to rob you of your joy. Don't allow any other person to steal from you the joy of just liking the things that you like and being the person that you are. If you don't like to sit and talk to people at lunch at your school, then don't. But don't let anyone else hurt you because you choose not to. Or I would encourage you to reach out a little bit too. I get a lot of emails from fans that say, nobody talks to me at school and I feel really alone. And I write them back and I say, well, do you talk to them?
Exactly.
I mean, how young were we all when we heard, if you want a friend, be friendly? So I would encourage kids to step outside their shell, because there are kids around you that'll probably really like you, and you'll have a lot in common, but you'll never know unless one of you reaches out and takes the first step, to become a friend. And often when you do that, you find that there are a lot of kids out there just like you who sit quietly at lunch 3 tables over, and you guys could be great friends if one or the other of you would just reach out.
And now on the lightest question, what do you think of Akon so far this year?
I love it. This is one of my favorite conventions. I kind of felt like I was kind of a regular. I was kind of part of the family for a few years. And then 2 years went by when I think it was 2 years went by where I got invited to other conventions before Akon contacted me. And I didn't really know. I mean, I couldn't really tell this other convention, well, wait for a minute. That kind of makes them feel bad. Hold off for just 1 minute. Let me wait and see if I'm going to get invited to another event that weekend. That makes them feel kind of like second rate. So the last 2 years I've been at other events this weekend, but Akon contacted me last year and they said, okay. In fact, they contacted me to come last year as a guest, and I was already committed. And they said, okay, well, let's put you down right now for 2012. So I'm very glad to be back. I'm very, very
welcome
happy
home.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for doing this interview.
My pleasure.
Well, this has been Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and I've been here at Akon 23 with
Vic Mignogna. Thanks for listening.
Oh, before we head on out though, anything you want to plug?
Wow. I would just say, if you are not a member of the most awesome fan club in the world, I want to personally invite you to join the Risenbool Rangers. That's www.risembool Rangers.com, and you will instantaneously have a family of 16,000 people around the world who love what you love and enjoy the same things, and it's free to join, so please consider yourselves personally invited. Also, if you're interested in any of my music, it's available on iTunes, it's available at the store at risenboolrangers.com, and it's also available from me personally at the events I attend, and that's a good way because then I can actually sign the CD for you. And then finally, keep your eyes open if you're sci-fi fans for a new Star Trek web series that I am exec producing, and I'm getting to fulfill my childhood dream of playing Captain Kirk. It's a fan-based series, and it includes a lot of well-known people, and it's going to be called Star Trek Continues, and you can go look it up right now, www.startrekcontinues.com. You can see our cast list. We'll be shooting our first episode this fall, and it's very exciting. So keep your eyes open for that.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
And good night. And if you're still with us, which, honestly, if you're hearing this, you are. Let me get into a little bit about what's going on here. We just had a lot of content, and we're going to have a little bit more. So we had an interview with Quentin Flynn from ACON 2012. That weird Swap Note Me Maybe song that's in there. A interview with Greg Wiseman from Denver Comic Con 1, and the interview with Vic Mignogna. Still can't pronounce his name, but it's good. It's all good, everybody. So, well, we still have a lot more content to go, so ladies and gentlemen, just strap down those headphones and turn up the volume. You're gonna be here for a while. 50 Shades of Radio DMG. I'm breaking out the handcuffs, bitches.
Next time on Dragon Ball Z, Goku teams up with My Little Pony. Twilight Sparkle takes out that dude from Twilight, actually. Because sparkling's a bad thing. Never forget that. Next time on Pony Ball Z.
And welcome back to Radio DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and I'm here at ACON 23 and 2012 with
Kyle Aber.
So, Kyle, what have you been up to in the last year since we've talked?
In the world of freelance voice acting, I had pretty much constant auditions. The work wasn't too steady last year, but it's picked up in the spring, and I'm happy to say I'm doing well. I've been doing more cons than I ever have in the past, so I guess the word is spreading that I love coming to conventions and hanging with the fans, and I've traveled to Australia a couple times. I went to Ireland, went to Hawaii, so I'm going global. I feel like I'm truly on tour, like a band or something, you know. I've done a lot of video game work. I'm happy to announce that you can hear me as Super Skrull in the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon. Just aired in Australia, but it will be airing in the States here around July.
Any video games you've been in recently that you can talk about?
Gosh, yeah, those darn non-disclosures. Just a lot of games. I can't really drop titles, unfortunately.
Oh, what about systems? Anything for the Wii U?
Systems. Stuff for, let's see, probably 3DS. There's probably a Vita title in there, which I'm a big fan of Vita. I know it's an underdog right now because it's overpriced and underselling, but I think it's a great system, and I'm really rooting for Sony because they make great product. It's just sometimes the sales get botched for whatever reason because I think they price it too high. But I love their stuff. But I'm kind of console brand neutral. You know, like if you make a good product, I'm going to support it. I love Xbox. I love DS. I love Vita. I love Sony PS3. You know, it's all good. I love iPhone. I love iPhone games.
Have you been in one?
Am I in one? I actually narrate one, a bartending game. And I totally forgot the name.
Just some bartending game with Kyle Bear. Just you do a Google search or something on it.
Something like
that.
Yeah. It's like a detective mystery game, but you have to, you know, mix and match alcoholic drinks in this bartender setting, and it's kind of unique.
Oh, it's like the episode of Columbo we wanted to see.
There you go.
So, you've also been working a bit with Smodcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I've been a huge fan of Kevin Smith ever since the first Clerks, and when he started expanding his podcast to Hollywood Babylon, which is about movie gossip news and everything that he does with Ralph Garman, who's a comedian and stuff based in L.A. and does morning radio there. They do a show together, Hollywood Babylon. I submitted some VO to them as a gag, just to have them read my email, which they did, and they played it, and Kevin Smith liked it a lot, and they said, hey, we want to use it. So I'm now the voice of Hollywood Babylon. And then he launched Smodco Internet Radio. They just recently had a slight name change, Smodcast to Smodco Internet Radio at smodcast.com, and his people approached me and said they want you to be the voice of the whole network. And like, oh, that's amazing, that's cool. So I'm happy to say I'm part of that team, so I not only voice it, but I get to write the promos as well. And because it's internet radio, there's no FCC restrictions, so I can be as dirty as I want to be.
Which you are, actually. We've listened to quite a few of those.
Pretty foul.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, but they like it, they play it, so I record it from home, though. Here's the thing. It's not like I go to Kevin Smith's house. I've been there once, and it was amazing. It's like a 3-level mansion in the Hollywood Hills, but basically they just email me, say, here's what we need, and then I draft it, write it, record it, upload it, and it gets in rotation by the next day, usually. There's a couple of things that I wrote that they didn't play, but 9 times out of 10.
So that means you have recording equipment at your house.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, what's your setup?
Setup's pretty basic, actually. I don't have a studio walls or anything. I don't record in my closet or anything. My apartment's fairly dead sounding, so I lucked out there. I use a condenser mic with, it's a Marshall MXL 2003. It's like less than $200 on Amazon. Plugged into an M-Mobile USB preamp. That's my home setup. What I use now on the road is either my iPhone or my iPad and the Apogee mic, which plugs directly into the charge port of either of those devices. And I use like iAudition or WavePad as the recording app and waveform editor, and can email MP3 or WAV to whoever. It accesses your contacts within the app. It's
Excellent.
really, really nice. So if I'm at it, and I had to do it the other day for Kevin Smith's new show on Hulu called Spoilers. I'm the intro guy for that. So they sent me the script, and I got to the hotel. I made a pillow fort because, hotel rooms sound really live and the sound's bouncing off the walls. So a pillow fort, put the comforter over my head, sounds nice and dead.
So you're building forts over there, I see.
Building forts.
That's where all the other towels went.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ghetto soundproofing. It works.
So what else have you been doing aside, what shows have you been on recently, aside from Dragon Ball Z Kai and such, any of the newer shows like Shiki or Penny and Stocking with Garter Belt or anything with Funimation?
Well, I wish. I haven't really done anything with Funimation lately. Some bit parts on One Piece. I'll be going in probably, Monday, working with Mike McFarlane on something, although I have no idea what. They usually throw me a bone when I come to town, and I end up doing an episodic character or some bit parts, or walla, as they say, additional background voices. I was the dad on Madoka Magica. Let's see, more Bleach is aired on Adult Swim, although I think it's still a filler arc. We've recorded some more Naruto. Other than that, like I said, I've been waiting with bated breath for the past 2 years for this Avengers cartoon episode to come out, because that's major personal achievement unlocked. The reason I wanted to get into voice acting is I want to voice on cartoons, and it feels so good to say that, wow, my first major cartoon is Marvel, it's superheroes, it's, and Super Skrull's a major villain, and he's only in for a couple episodes, I think, but still, got to start somewhere.
Oh, yeah. So how many times have you seen Avengers?
The movie Avengers I've seen twice.
Only twice?
Only twice.
Only twice.
Yeah, but I will be buying that Blu-ray, which will have an extra half hour of cutscenes and
more shawarma.
More shawarma.
Yes,
more shawarma. I love the fact that shawarma scene was added. They shot that the day after the premiere. It even looks like it was shot on video. It looks like it wasn't filmed. It was like...
I love that there's no dialogue in it.
Yeah.
It's just all chewing.
And that Chris, Captain America is hiding his face, but the reason why is because he has a beard now for his next roles and whatever he's working on. So they made a prosthetic, but I guess that wasn't enough, so he hides his face during that one shot. And there you go.
Oh, now we have to see it again and take a look at that.
Yep, there you go. And I think it's amazing that Joss Whedon has had two this year, not just Avengers, but Cabin in the Woods, which he didn't direct, but he did write. And that movie was amazing. It totally takes all the cliches of the horror genre and just reinvents them in a really exciting way. The way that Scream did in the 90s. So people who missed Cabin in the Woods and wrote it off as a typical slasher flick, they need to get a hold of a copy when it comes on video, because it's truly great. I mean, as Joss Whedon can only do.
So, let's see. I lost my question there for a moment. It's been a long convention. So, How's the convention been for you so far?
It's always a blast to return to ACON. It's where I started as a fan, and then it was my first con as industry. I'm great friends with a lot of staff and attendees who come here each year, so I see a lot of familiar faces. Although I go to so many cons that I'm bad with names, so I'll say, "Oh, hey, you! It's great to see you again."
Pretty much.
I'm like reuniting with people, and like I'll hug them, shake their hands, and go, "Hey, dude!" And like, but names are like out the head because I go to so many of these that I forget which way is up, and sometimes I get jet lagged. And but yeah, they always treat me wonderful here. It's great to be a part of one of the nation's oldest and biggest cons.
They keep you in Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, although I didn't ask for anything special, really. I mean, I've been trying to slowly augment the diet, eat a little more Subway, a little less fried foods, shift to diet soda instead of regular, ultimately say, oh, just drink more water. It's like, but water is so bland. I'll drink Propel. It's flavored water. It's like, that's not the same. It's like, but it's a step in the right direction.
Oh, are you using any particular diet? Like
not really.
No exercise?
No, not yet. You know, I need to do that. Everyone needs to do something to augment, that, because I'm getting older. I'll be 43 in a couple of months. And I'm starting to feel it. My feet tire out a little sooner, and the knees creak, and like, oh, it hurts to bend down and tie my shoes.
Okay.
It's fun getting older.
It's a little harder to to go to these conventions when you get older, and you'll have to use a cane. I think next year you'll be here with a walker, right?
Well, hey, in the past 10 years I would go, yeah, totally, man. I'm going to be in the walker. You should watch me at raves. I used to actually dance for like 10 or 15 minutes at raves. Now I just kind of bob my head and do the white guy head bob for a few songs. Like, this is cool, this is great, okay, and I'm spent. Because then you start smelling everybody.
That whole dubstep funk.
Wafting in the dubstep funk, yes.
Yep.
It's not pretty. But, it's part of the con culture, the con life. It's a great thing to be a part of. It's great to see people of all ethnicities, orientations, religion, lack of religion, whatever, different genders, just come together and basically just be themselves and not get judged by, authority figures. Maybe some of the hotel staff might wink an eye or whatever, but overall, just a community that comes together and celebrates not being judged. I'm away from high school. I'm away from all the trolls out there. I can just come for a weekend and just relax and be myself. And that's empowerment.
I have a kind of quick question, actually, from, last night we went to the thing you were doing with Super Mario Brothers, where you were narrating it, and I was wondering a bit, what is your Reddit username?
That's a good question. God, I registered for it. And I don't remember if I used my own name or if I used another name. Because I've never posted.
Oh,
I've never commented.
You should do an AMA.
I should do an AMA. IMA, yeah. I'm a DBZ narrator. I think someone started that requesting it, and I never followed through. I should.
Oh.
Because I would totally do that.
An AMA Kyle LeBear. And I'm like, what's a Kyle LeBear?
Yeah. You see all the trolls out there. It's like another 4chan. It's like,
well,
they probably welcome you in our anime.
Oh, well, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they would.
I hope so. There was one guy who was kind of a troll on Twitter today. He went out of his way to tag my name in his post that's like, oh, the Super Mario Brothers thing wasn't funny. He was bad, or like, whatever, dude, Everyone else was laughing. Sorry you had a bad time.
It's kind of a hard movie to go through there, because, it's you know how it is with some stuff, when you get stuff that's kind of boring.
Yep.
They're just like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
You kind of have to look away from it a little bit to try and figure out, yeah.
It was hard to write jokes for it, but I don't know if people were laughing to be polite or laughing because they genuinely thought it was funny. But, I had a good friend of mine, Odell Atkinson, who I pitched him to, because he's a funny guy, and I said, I'm going to do this riff track at ACON. Can you help me by watching this horrible movie and just come up with some jokes? And then he turned in his script to me. And, like Mystery Science Theater, we just worked at it, watched the movie again, and kind of whittled down. I used some of his stuff and threw out others and augmented some of his other things. And then it was easier to come up with jokes once I had something to play off of. But just watching the movie, because I'd never seen Super Mario Brothers before. It was suggested here at ACON last year when I did Street Fighter, the Van Damme one. what should I riff next year? And they said, you should do Super Mario Brothers. This year I asked the same thing. People were going either Mortal Kombat or Masters of the Universe.
Masters of the Universe is a bit better. Mortal Kombat's actually, well, the first one's actually kind of good at points.
Kind of good at points. I like the soundtrack.
Oh man, the soundtrack's pretty great in that one. And the fight sequences.
But yeah, He-Man, that's probably a little more rife with opportunity.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Or Chun-Li, Legend of Chun-Li, I don't know.
Ooh, that's a good one too. So, what does the future hold for Kyle Bear?
Good question.
After A-Con.
I wish I could. I wish I could predict the future. The only predictable thing is, let's see, I have a couple sessions this next week, which is great. Normally, I hear like the day before. It's like, are you available tomorrow? Well, we need you. Like, okay, awesome.
You're like, paycheck.
It's unpredictable. Yeah, totally. It's an unpredictable world. I could have a good week followed by 3 dead weeks, or a good month followed by 3 dead months, or 6 awesome months followed by 6 not so awesome months. You almost have to kind of budget your life out. It's like, I've got money. It's like, no, you just pretend you don't have lots of money so you can ride out the slow months. What do I have coming up? I'm going to Anime next week, and then after that, Delta H in Houston, and then PortCon Maine in Portland, Maine, and then Anime Expo, and then Anime World Expo in Indianapolis, and then I'm off for a few weeks, and then Anime Fest Orlando in August. I'll be going to Leicester, UK for Alcon in September. I've got Anime Nebraska coming up. I think we're finalizing that. So yeah, more cons.
Just more cons and all that.
More cons, more work. You'll of course hear me continuing on smodcast.com, writing promos, voicing them, being Sir Dude, a little persona that I kind of invented there.
So, where do you go to when you're writing your own material for this? What deep, dark, secret place inside your mind do you go to pull out that inner Kyle Bear and put him on the
It's more like the inner Kevin Smith fan.
Oh,
it's just knowing that, watching and knowing and listening to him for years, him talk, and just the mindset that he has as a geek, and we're going to those extremely X-rated sort of jokes and puns. It's like, all right, well, I'm going into that mindset. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and be G-rated, although, just for variety's sake, we'll cut one with maybe a few less, F-bombs. Maybe it's just something straightforward, just to give them variety, And obviously with the Hulu thing, with spoilers, they're wanting to attract like a teen and up audience instead of adults only.
So more PG-13 on that one.
Yeah. We're not like F-bombing this and fart jokes and all that stuff. We're not being as crass.
Just slightly crass.
Only slightly crass. But yeah, it's fun. I got to go to a test taping of a test show, and Stan Lee was their special guest for the week, so that was really cool. Didn't get to meet him, but I was like within 5 feet of him, sitting on the sidelines as they were taping. I was like, this is so cool. The creator of so many of the Avengers, of Spider-Man, of all these great classic characters right there in front of me.
You're just like, I'm breathing his air.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. I'm breathing his air.
Exactly. Well, before we get going, because this will be kind of the last question, is there anything you'd like to go ahead and plug before we go?
Oh, gosh. Well, if anyone wants to follow me, I'm always up to meet more people through social media. I have a Facebook page at facebook.com/KyleAbearVO. Last name, of course, spelled Hebert, so it looks like Hebert. You can do twitter.com/KyleHebert. Try not to take it personally if you say, please follow me back, and I say no, because I can't follow everyone. Your feed will just be all noise at that point. So I already follow like 300 people. I was like, that's enough, God. But and my website, KyleAbear.com. I keep up to date with appearances and projects. So you can find me there. Learn about my Skype VO workouts for beginning people who want to know what it's like to do an audition, get a professional to critique your voice acting skills as a beginner. All that stuff is on my website.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much for doing this interview with us.
Sure, absolutely.
My name's Philip. I'm Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth with Radio DMG at ACON 23, and this has been an interview with
Kyle Bear.
And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And good night.
Hello. I'm enjoying my smart water here. It's giant. You could tell at the beginning of the day because I haven't begun to tackle it. So.
And welcome back to Radio DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth. I'm here at Acon 23 with
Jeremy Lee.
And what do you do, just in case people forgot?
I am an actor. I do on-camera acting, films, and TV, and I also do a lot of voice acting for anime and other cartoons.
So what are you currently working on?
I was just announced to be playing Knee Socks in Panty and Stocking, as well as Shiki. I am playing Sunako in Shiki, which just, I guess, dropped. And then there's a couple other things I'm working on, but I don't know if Funimation has released all of that information, so, yeah.
So, what do you think of Acon so far?
Oh, it's been great. I mean, I love Acon. I'm from Dallas, so it's nice to... I don't know why it's nice to go to a hotel in the area that you live in and just, like, have a vacation and chill. And there's so many fun things here. The artists are super talented. And it's just nice to see the fans. They're always very supportive here. Well, any convention. But here, I guess since I'm from here, I feel love from the state and the people. I don't know.
You mentioned that you just finished up Shiki, which is kind of one of those creepy little series and stuff.
Yes.
What was your favorite part of that?
I really just enjoy the show being... I describe the show as being a complete gray area. You know, you have villains and you have heroes, but the side changes depending on what perspective who you want to ally with and who the audience wants to ally with. And it's interesting, in my panel we were discussing it, some people were talking about, well, the humans are great and the vampires are evil, and then other people were fighting, and they both saw the same show, just see it from different perspectives. And I just really love that element of the show and how it's written, and it's very good about being pretty unbiased and allowing the audience to make their own decisions, which I really like that in any sort of storytelling process.
And the whole supernatural aspect doesn't hurt at all.
Oh, no,
right?
not at all.
Oh, yeah.
No, because we all know I'm a fan of that. Ghosts
yeah.
and vampires and all sorts of the unknown creepy things.
So anything creepy happened since, like, last time we interviewed you?
No. No, I don't think so. I mean, not that I remember anyway. Sorry, that's not exciting.
Oh.
I should make up something.
Like, yeah.
I think my phone just went off, and I'm not really sure how that happened. So maybe
probably
there's
wires.
I think there's someone here in my phone. There's a little person living in my phone.
What's the little person living in your phone's name?
I don't know. We should probably name it, shouldn't we? Let's see what the little noise was, and let's see if that makes sense. Oh. Michael, apparently.
Ah.
That's not a fun name either.
Nope. And you have to add something to it at the end. So, have you been? What else have you been up to besides some of the stuff with Funimation? Any video games or anything recently?
I did work on a couple video games. I don't know if those have been released and things. I did Throwing Stones Season 2. We did a Season 2, and that was released, and that did really well. And I did a film that was in production, post-production, and I think it's slated to come out in September. And just working on some other projects like that. I did a couple other films that are in post-production now. So various things at different stages, a couple things that are trying to get funding so they can be made, which is always a fun process. So it's been pretty chill, actually.
So should we start a Kickstarter to help you through those?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think there's a couple Kickstarters going on, but I don't know at what place they are. One of the projects is called Run, and I think they decided to postpone that and tweak things a little bit. And then there was another project that I was looking at working on in Los Angeles, and they're tweaking the script and looking at things like that. So it's always a process. You never know. I'm sure it'll be like one of those days where I'll get the call and they'll be like, "Can you be here to shoot in like 2 days?" Yeah, wow, okay. So that's the business. That's what makes it fun. It's very chill, and then it's very busy, and then chill and busy. So
how do you decide what like when you get offered a job or so, or when you
see these parts, how do you decide which ones you want to be in or which ones you want to go for? Or do you just kind of take the shotgun approach? It's like, okay, this.
Well, I mean, if I'll audition for things and I'm not really at a place where I can pick stuff necessarily, but if it's a project that I audition for and I get the project and I read the script and I'm like, I don't think I can do this. It's not content-wise what I'm comfortable with or something like that, then I will turn it down or say I'm not really willing to work on it. But I've been really fortunate lately with reading a lot of great scripts and different stories that tell about a side of humanity or someone's life that I don't know much about. And so I would like to jump in their shoes for a month, 3 months, and get to know how they would function. And I think in a way that broadens my own life experience and allows me to see things from other perspectives. So.
Oh, I don't think we asked this last time, but are there any books you're currently reading now? Well, of course we didn't ask about that this time.
Yeah.
What are you reading?
I'm actually reading The Discovery of Witches and also The Hunger Games. And then I just bought a book, and I haven't started it yet, so I don't remember what the title is. But I'm finishing up a book called The Eight, which is a really fun book. So yeah, I'm reading multiple books at the same time, and then just other fun books. I like spiritual or positive quotes, so I always have those books lying around. I have the quotable Walt Disney. So my favorite game to do is hold it, open it up to a page, have a question in my head, and Walt Disney always has the right answer for me. I don't really know how that works because it's Walt Disney magic.
That's it. I mean, he invented the magic
kingdom. He did. He's a magical man, that Walt Disney.
Have you been to Walt Disney World yet?
Oh, yes.
Oh, how many times?
I've been to Walt Disney World once, but I've been to Disneyland about 8 times. And I love Disneyland because it's so compact that you could do everything in a day. Walt Disney World, we spread it out into 3 days. So.
What's your favorite ride at Walt Disneyland?
That's so hard. I love Pirates. I love Haunted Mansion. Indiana Jones is very cool. And Space Mountain, I had forgotten. I thought it was going to be, horribly terrifying because I hadn't ridden it in a while. It's not. It's great. It's really fun. It's a good park to, I think, hang out with a family. The rides are entertaining enough, but you're not going to, kids aren't going to cry and hate their lives. So,
well, of course.
No. Unless you ride Tower of Terror, in which case
and besides,
you might be a little terrified.
Hating their lives comes later. That's high school.
Right. Exactly. You go to the happiest place on earth to forget about your life and live in the fairy tale castle for a day.
With ghosts.
Yeah, right.
Yes, of course.
Hey.
So, going back to the books, how far are you in the Hunger Games?
Not very far. I mean, I saw the movie first, and I loved the movie, and so I thought, well, do I really need to read the book? Because I saw the movie, am I going to, have a different perspective? And so I had put it off, and then people were like, no, you really just have to read the books. You'll really like them. There's always stuff that gets left out, but you'll really appreciate the book. So I ordered it on Amazon, and I actually just started reading it last night, so I didn't get very far.
So not very far in it.
I came back from the convention, I was like, yeah, I'll read for a little while, and passed out. I was exhausted. So,
It happens.
Yeah, but I love The Hunger Games. The movie was insanely cool, so.
So, what other movies have you seen recently?
I saw The Avengers.
How many times?
I've only seen it once.
Oh, shame on you.
I know. I wanted to see it more, but I've been traveling back and forth from various cities. I haven't been in one city more than 2 weeks. So when I came back to Texas and my boyfriend was here, he's like, you have to see The Avengers. I saw it yesterday and we have to see it again. And I was like, okay. And he's like, we're seeing it today as soon as you get off the plane. So we saw The Avengers, and then I'll just have to figure out another time to see it. I'm going to watch Thor in my hotel later today because I hadn't seen it, and I kind of was like, it doesn't look that great, but it's going to be awesome. Mm-hmm.
It's got Tom Middleston in
it. It's going to be good. So I'll be watching that later. And I saw Dark Shadows. It was, not incredibly awesome, I didn't think, but it was fun. But I don't think it's supposed to be like an Academy Award-winning movie. I think it's just supposed to be a fun, like, enjoyment, spectacle kind of film.
Did you ever see the old soap opera that's based on?
No, my mom had watched it, so she it was very different, which I thought was a very wise choice for them, because when people are such fans of a show, you either have to do it exactly like it, or you have to do something completely different and maintain an element of the show and kind of make it your own. So I thought that was a very wise choice to do that and kind of make it your own, so people aren't judging it, which they're going to do anyway.
Kind of like The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Totally different than the comics.
Exactly. But I mean, it still maintains, elements of the comics.
Do you watch The Walking Dead or not enough ghosts?
Yeah. No, I do. I do watch The Walking Dead.
It's like, would you love to be a zombie on that show or something?
Oh, it's Frank Darabont. I mean, anything, the man is a genius. If he's like, I'm going to make you this crazy zombie person with, like, no arm, and you're going to be, like, I'd be like, okay, dude, you're a genius, whatever you say.
So, give us your best zombie impression.
Oh my gosh, I can't do that.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
You're like, nope.
I would have to practice. I would never be able to do the integrity. And if Frank Darabont heard this, he would be like, oh, this is a terrible audition, I can't hire her. I would have to do my zombie research.
Or at least not sleep for a couple days.
Exactly.
Like the whole thing. Wait till the end of the convention.
Exactly. I've probably done a great zombie impression at the airport a couple of times, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure they love that.
Yeah. It was frightening at the airport when one of the security men knew who. He was like, "Hey, you! I know you, because I've been going to the airport so often." I'm like, "Oh, this is not good.
No,
I will give you $1 to not know who I am, sir." So, yeah, I know.
All that traveling can be a little bit taxing. How do you keep in touch with, like, your family and your home life and all that? I
love my phone. My iPhone is great. I'm always texting everybody and calling everyone, and everybody's been, since I've only been in one place no more than like 3 weeks, as soon as I start like missing people, I'm going back, and then I'm going back. So it's been a good sort of small breaking away, spending time alone, and still getting to see people. Now I'm probably going to have to slow down and stay in one place for a little while, just so I don't lose my mind. And sleeping on a plane is not very easy. And also, plane tickets are expensive, so staying in one place might be fun for a little while.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned earlier that you also now have a significant other. How do you meet that person?
How did I meet him the first time?
It's like, how'd you meet?
Yeah.
How'd this happen?
Oh, we met in college doing a directing acting class. And then he ended up writing a play, and I ended up auditioning for it, and we worked on the show. And then we just started hanging out and dating, and now we have been together for almost 3 years. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's very fun.
I was hoping for some type of rescued me from such a...
Yeah, no.
Let's get some great stories
Nothing crazy awesome. We should make up something. Like, I was in a real haunted mansion, and he, fell in through the ceiling. He would probably like that better.
Yeah. That'd make for a better proposal story.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. That would be... In a haunted mansion, that might be scary. Although, I had a friend who... proposed to his now wife in a graveyard, and it was a really cool story. They're very happy. It was at night too. I'm like, I would think, if you're driving along, you're pulling up to a graveyard, you start to get a little nervous, but she didn't. So there you go.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of terrifying. It's like you walk out into the graveyard. It's like, well, I thought I'd talk to you about our relationship.
Yeah, no kidding. It's how's this going?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
There's not an open one over here.
Grab the shovel.
Yeah. Why don't you sit here in this very dark light here next to this grave? Yeah, that looks like a good spot. I'll be right back. I just have to get something out of my coat pocket. This is just not...
Yeah, at that point.
Get a little nervous. I don't know. It works for some people. Who knows? It might. So. I guess that's true love. Who am I to judge? I don't know.
So, what else are you working on a third season for Throwing Stones? Is there going to be one?
I don't know. If there is a third season coming up, I I haven't been approached about being a part of it, so I don't think I would be a part of it. I think my character is kind of finished in the show, unless they were going to retool it and work it someplace else. I don't know. The writers are really good, so I don't know what they've got in store. But season 2 was a very fun season to work on, and we shot that in 3 days, and it was a very intense 3 days. We actually started the first day, the longest day, all of the stuff in the gym we shot on my birthday. Oh. So I'm like crying and watching people die on my birthday. It was really eventful.
That's always a fun story. It's like,
but you know, on my birthday, everybody's saying happy birthday to me, and there was a cake, and everybody's covered in blood. I mean, it was like, how often do you get that birthday where everybody's fine, often. Covered in blood? Yeah, no. So it was very fun.
Well, not very often in this country.
That is true. That is true. I like it better when it's happier, though, and everybody's fine. They just have, like, sticky blood rather than, like, blood from their body, you know.
So, what's your favorite... I mentioned the convention stuff here. We already mentioned that. Are you working on any more music or anything currently?
I am not. I mean, I'm staying in a couple of animated shows. In the film that's coming out in September, Beyond the Farthest Star, I sing a song in that film. And I've done some shows like singing live, but I haven't made any efforts or had any interest in writing songs or taking music that direction. I mean, it would be fun. I think if I were going to do that, I would want to work with somebody to kind of help me progress in playing a musical instrument and being able to write music, because I would really love to do that. So that's probably something at some point in my life I would like to do.
Have you thought of any other type of writing?
I do. I write scripts and screenplays and things like that. I actually just finished writing a feature film, and then I'm in the rewriting stage for that. And I have finished writing a comedy television pilot, and I'm in the rewriting stages of that as well. So, I'm always writing things. I'm coming up with ideas. I have like 5 to 10 ideas for scripts that I want to start working on. So once I get these in a good place, then I can start working on the others.
Oh, I don't think I asked you this last time, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you this time. Some of the stuff that you work on contains like profanity or some more risque content. Yeah. What does your family think of this?
I don't know. I mean, there'd be some shows that I will let them know. I mean, anime stuff, there's always fan service. There's things like that. And I'll let them know ahead of time, like, here, this is going to happen. And if they don't want to watch it, that's fine. It's definitely awkward. But what I always have thought of, especially in a film, that would be when I would have a little more of a say, I guess, if I were working on something that was a little more risque in that area, because it would be me on camera rather than just my voice, and the animation was already drawn, so I look at it that way and just telling the story. But I think that if it serves the story and it's integral to the story, and it makes people connect more with the characters and understand where they're coming from, and it has a purpose, and it's a great story, and it's written well, and the characters has a lot of integrity or passion for something, then I would, consider doing that, and my family would respect that. If I was just doing it for just gratuitous reasons, I think that they would probably be disappointed, as I would be disappointed in myself. The weird thing is, my boyfriend does not like to watch me doing projects where I die or I'm in like any amount of like serious danger. He doesn't like it. Oh. So, but like language and all that stuff, my family is like, they're pretty okay with it. I mean, I guess if it were like every other word, they might have an issue, but if it's like here and there, and there's a purpose for it, they're understanding, because they know it's work and it's not me. And if I started behaving that way, like on the street, like hanging out with them, like at a family dinner, I think they might pull me aside and tell me to stop doing that.
Intervention.
Yeah, pretty much. You're taking your work home. Yeah. So, no, but that hasn't happened, so that's been pretty good.
So, anything that you'd like to go ahead and plug and stuff before we get going?
My fan page, The Epic Nights of Jeremy Lee, is super awesome and supportive, and when they created it. I was very surprised because I didn't know that many people would be supportive of my work, but they've been really cool. They wrote a theme song, and I'm very, very grateful to them and all of the love and support they've shown me. So I will give a shout out to them. And I guess the film that's coming out, Beyond the Farthest Star, in September. And Panty and Stocking, I think they said was coming out this summer. And Shiki's out now. And then there's a couple other shows that will be coming out that I'm excited for everybody to hear.
So, Beyond the Farthest Stars, it can be a wide release?
That's a good question. I think they're still trying to figure out how distribution is going to work because it's a faith-based film. So, I mean, it's a very gritty faith-based film. My character is suicidal and very opinionated, and she is dealing with a lot of anger and resentment and misunderstanding from her family. So there's a lot of things going on. So a lot of the faith-based community has been weary of how the general public will respond to the project. But hopefully, eventually, it will be a wide release, or it'll start small and then go from there.
Kind of like with what happened with Fireproof and Courageous.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So hopefully, I mean, we're optimistic. We don't know what's going to happen.
Would you ever want to work with the people who made Fireproof and Courageous?
Oh, definitely. Okay. I mean, the reason that I was really drawn to this script is it's a very hopeful project, and you could definitely see a journey of self-discovery, and it's a very intelligent script. The family dynamic is really strong, and it was an opportunity for me to play a character that I have not gotten to play before, and I get to sing, which was terrifying for me, but I was able to get past it, and it was just something I had to get over. A lot of fears about doing things like that. I smoked in the film, which I'm not a smoker, so that was very...
That would ruin your voice.
Yeah, actually it didn't. It was, I don't know how that didn't happen, but I was very fortunate that it didn't. So, but yeah, any project, any company that would have a great script and they would like me to be part of the project, I would definitely try to make it work. Because I love my job, and I need time to work. And paying bills is awesome, too. Oh. And doing my job allows that to happen.
Having the money to pay the bills is awesome, not the paying the bills part.
You're right. Yeah. Having the money to pay the bills plus some, so you can do fun things with the extra money.
Like go to Disneyland.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Yes. Well, thank you for doing this interview with us today. This has been Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, with Radio DMG, over here at Acon 23 with...
Jeremy Lee.
And good night. Say good night.
There appears to be a lot of music in this episode. Well, here is a dirty little secret about Radio DMG. Once upon a time, Radio DMG was a radio station. All we had was music. And I love music. I love music, and I want to put a lot of it into here. Woo! So you're just going to have to deal with it. As for the taste in music, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not just a journalist, I'm a professional troll. You may have seen me on 4chan or Reddit or something, but I'm a professional troll. Speaking of trolling, man, we get a lot of feedback, and we're going to actually start reading the feedback from our Twitters and our YouTube and emails and our Facebook and all that jazz on the show. So, you've been warned. We're going to call that section of the show Viral Speak, and it's going to be pretty much the reason we have an NSFW tag on all of these. Gasp. But hey, you know what? Guess what? We still have a little bit more show to go. If you haven't noticed, or if you've been keeping track, or if you haven't been keeping track, here, let me break it down to you, yo. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 interviews, and now we're going to have some kind of messy audio, but there was a panel that was like an hour long that had a bunch of voice actors in it, including Billy West, who most people might know because he's Fry. We weren't able to get an interview with him. Denver Comic Con. Denver Comic Conference and Literary... Denver Comic Con and Literary Conference. Wow. Anyways. So, we'll see where... Yeah, anyways, let me go ahead and just play this audio. It's a little messy. Might be a little loud at points, but it's great stuff. These people have some cool things to say, and they're neat people. They're really neat people. I mean, Billy West, he's everybody that you've ever heard, pretty much. Like, if you watch Futurama, he's all of those people. So, enjoy. Ooh. But first, another musical interlude, just to bother you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Greg Weitzman, and I'm the moderator for this panel. I'm also the voice of Snapper Carr on Young Justice. Pretty much the only voice I do. It sounds pretty much like this. So I'd like to introduce our panelists, starting with Corey Payton, the voice of Cyborg and Aqualad.
And now for the real voiceover people. The legendary Tom Payne and Billy West. Come on down. What? Mark Ryan is drunk at a bar somewhere. But you all know what he sounds like. He sounds amazing. He'll be here for the class. All right.
All right, going up. All right, great.
How you guys doing? Hello. Welcome to Denver Comic-Con. Who knows the first one of its kind. Yeah, really. You're one stop for this sort of thing. Wow. So what do you want to talk about? I got some great recipes. That's right. Vegan recipes. They're vegan recipes. I guess we should introduce ourselves here. I've been involved with cartoon stuff for quite a while. Longer than I care to remember, actually, because it just happened so fast. But when I was a kid, I was kind of a freak. I used to do noises and Tourette out voices, and everybody would be like, can you not do that? It was disgusting, and there was no room for nonsense in the 50s, I'll tell you. As a matter of fact, I resent that it's cool to be a nerd now. It wasn't 50 years ago. Oh my God. I had 1.5 friends. I did. There was one guy in the other side of town, and he was legend because he had a huge comic book collection. This is what I heard. It's like ancient Greece. One guy runs, tells the other guy, and then he runs the other side of town. I met him, and I was like, okay, there's somebody that's like me, and we read comic books, and we used to act out the parts. We didn't just use it as part of our life. It almost became a way of life. And certain TV programs. And back then there was this desperation that here you are watching the coolest thing you ever saw in your life, and when it's gone forever. Yeah, you actually run a Blockbuster and rent it. No, but there was no, you never knew when they were going to show that again. There was nobody to tell you. It was like, so you're so scared of losing something so precious that you absorbed it out of sheer desperation and wanting to replicate it for people that didn't see it or hear it.
Yeah, people ask me all the time, like, how do you come up with voices? And I'm like, I don't come up with anything. I use it as an example. I said there are guys in this business that really do kind of come up with new and first time you've ever heard it sort of sounds. I'm not one of those guys. I grew up, in the golden age of television reruns, and I would rush home after school every day to watch reruns, of all that stuff, and those shows that were made back in the 50s had some of the most amazing characters and stories, and stuff they just couldn't get away with today because they were, by our standards, really just too stereotyped. But that's what I grew up watching, and I just recycle what I heard. And of course, nowadays nobody knows that they want an old Western guy. You're not a rich guy, give him one ring. They don't know that, and they know it's cool. No, No, it's just regulating what I learned. But it's like a guy from I don't know his name. He was in about 5 times a season. He was on I Love Lucy. He always played the bank teller.
Gail Gordon?
No.
Joe
Frank Ricardo. Frank Nelson. Now think about it. This is back when they would have the same actor show up on the same show 5 times in one season, playing 5 different characters, and he had totally accepted it. It's like, this week he's like, oh, hello, Mrs. Ricardo, welcome to the bank. And 2 weeks later he's like, oh, hello, Mrs. Ricardo, welcome to the gardening center. And nobody accepted it. And the thing was, a crack-up was I saw one of those the other day with him, and I was like, he was like, oh, hello, Mrs. Ricardo. I'm like, did nobody in the 50s realize how completely gay he was? I mean, it was terrific. It's
but
like,
he rocked the television set.
it was like, exactly, I'm like, that was one of my characters. That's my stock character now.
There was no word for gay.
No, it was such a happy word. Yeah.
One of these things is not like the others.
No. We're Paul Lynde in television.
Oh, yeah.
We wanted to mimic these guys. Somebody,
How's the rat race, dear?
the rats are winning. So you guys know these either via impressions or you actually saw this nut. You rocked the television set.
But yeah, that's where I got most of my stuff. I steal from the best.
We probably had the same hair.
Well,
like Jerry Lewis.
Oh yeah, we were talking. We did something a few years ago that still, for us, is still like, we just kind of go, did that happen? It was just a whim. We found out Jerry Lewis was doing sort of a one-man show thing. I don't know where, he just on a whim put together an orchestra, and he would stand up and just tell stories.
Vegas.
And in Vegas, and he only did this for, a few times, and then a couple years later he did it again. And me and Billy and Tom Kennedy, SpongeBob, amongst other things, decided to go to Vegas and see. And we just thought we were just going to go to Vegas and see if we could go in and see his show.
Yeah.
No plans, we just went. And the power of cartoons. I picked up the phone, I called Gary Owens, who the older folks will know. Get the finger of finger, those are beautiful down land. Yep. That's it. Which is, by the way, the voice of Professor Utopia. That's it. And I told Gary when I got the job, I said, you're fine, but I so your voice for this character, and as long as you do me well. Anyway, I called Gary because Gary knows absolutely everybody in the universe, and I said, you don't have any way, we don't have any connection to Jerry Lewis. Oh, Cole, we need to get in there. And I called, and of course they're like, oh, well, I'm sure, Mr. Lewis, lots of people want to see him. And I said, well, I'm here with Billy West, Tom Kenny. Of course, someone's like, I'm like, oh, let me rephrase that. SpongeBob SquarePants, Bugs Bunny, I named a few, and they're like, hold on. Because of course Jerry had a 12-year-old daughter at the time, and I get a phone call back in my hotel room like 5 minutes later, like, yes, be here at 5 o'clock. So the three of us,
Jerry will see you.
Jerry was young, so we're thinking we're just going to go see the show. No, we go backstage, he had a photographer there, his kids, his grandkids, and for 2 hours we're hanging out there back with Jerry Lewis, and he's treating us like we're celebrities. And he's like, well, my Nickelodeon guys. And we came out there walking down the hall, and he was Billy talking, so he goes, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, what happened? How did we just... For like 90 minutes we mattered.
No, that's true. Well, from somebody that we really respected, and he clowned for us too. I don't know if you know the stories about Jerry Lewis, but you can meet like there's a Jerry A, a Jerry B, and a Jerry C. And I heard tales. He's the one that's kind of serious. And I said, hey, Mr. Lewis, man, when I was a kid in Detroit, it was like 1962. I walked for almost 7 miles in Detroit to the Royal Oak Theater and to see the Nutty Professor where you were doing a stage show. And he goes, boy, was I whoring for that picture. He would go to the theaters. That's what a lot of celebs did.
But he clowned for us. We were taking pictures with him, and there were big plants behind us, tropical plants, and he took a leaf and a branch from one of them and stuck it like behind him so that when it came up, it would come up fast and full. And he had it between his legs, and we're getting ready to take a picture. And all of a sudden, right between his legs, he goes,
Did you see that? I grew a fern! I grew a fern!
and I couldn't help but die laughing because here's the guy that was, kind of a really big part of shaping what we did.
But I asked him a phone call. I said, we get to settle something for us meaning the entire cartoon community. Because everyone always jokes when they're doing Jerry Lewis, they go,
Oh, Flavin! And the Flavin!
and like the scientists on The Simpsons, is Jerry Lewis, And I said, no one knows. Is it Flavin? Flavin? What exactly is it? And he goes, Flavin. He goes, it's Clayton, like a name, Clayton. He goes, you're going to steal my bits, get him right.
We don't turn this
for the record, Clayton.
Flavin!
So what can we tell you? These guys, it's mothballs to them, It's like changing history. They just open up the pyramid and
there's microphones, stand up and ask a
Sparrow, Jerry Lewis.
We don't know that was pretty good, man. I'm sitting here like this, getting the last with everybody else. It's pretty awesome. I just, my first audition was for Teen Titans, and I just got really lucky. And it happened to be, and I literally I walked in there, and there was a room full of black actors that I've seen on television, and I thought to myself, I was like, well, this would be nice to audition. I finally got the audition for a voiceover, the super role, and I had the most fun I can remember in a long time. I thought, man, I hope they let me audition again. For everything. I remember they kept telling me to be quieter, and I think I slapped the music stand a couple of times, out of exuberance. Yeah, I was playing a little bit, and a couple of months later, I got that show, and I'd probably still be wondering how to get a voiceover job if I hadn't got that job. But it was the coolest thing was when they showed me the picture and they said who I was going to be playing. I looked at it and it didn't look like the guy I remembered, but I went back and I had a couple of comic books. And I remember when I was a kid, I was at the store and it was Robin and a bunch of superheroes that I wasn't aware of, but it was Teen Titans and it was and there was a bunch of them. And over in the corner there was this black guy, and I was like, that's me. Because when I was growing up, my favorite characters were the ones that I was like that I could play on the playground. And so my favorite was Spider-Man because he could be any color. Maybe I could be Peter Parker. I could sure go with Spider-Man. He was skinny just like me. We could do it. And so when I saw it, I didn't even know his name. He had like this purple thing coming out of his little cannon or whatever, and I decided that's why I bought that issue of Teen Titans, and then years later I went back and looked at it and I was like, oh my god, that's a dude. And ever since then it's been the coolest journey to be able to play comic book characters in video games or in cartoons of these characters that I grow up. The crazy thing is that I love Nick Fury like the white Nick Fury from like way back in the comic books. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, love Nick Fury, wish I could play Nick Fury. And then lo and behold, they turned him into Sam Jackson. And I ended up playing Nick Fury in a video game, like I don't know, like 7 or 8 years ago, and I was like, it's hard to get much better than this, So
it's a great, it's been a really cool journey for me to be able to do something like that and literally live your, like your childhood fantasies out. And then on top of that, to be able to do something like Young Justice to kind of help create a cartoon and comic book character like Aqualad, and which Greg and Brandon Vietti came up with, and Phil Ross as well.
Phil,
the character design, and honestly, one of the coolest things about that is that my mom, when she was growing up, she never learned to swim because she wasn't allowed to swim in public swimming pools when she was a kid. And when she was 40, when she turned 40, she finally learned how to swim. And people, and there's that, kind of stereotypical joke that black people can't swim. And I love that there's a generation of kids that if anybody makes that joke, they'll just look at them like they're stupid because like the greatest swimmer in the history of the world is a black guy. So that was pretty awesome.
All right, so in theory, I'm supposed to moderate, but I feel really useless here. So let's line up for questions, then I can at least point. Right here.
I've been listening to a podcast hosted by Rob Paulson called Talking Jews, and one of the things he talks about a lot is that it's not just funny voices, but you have theatrical backgrounds or comedic backgrounds. And I'm just wondering, what do you guys do to keep yourself sharp? Like, do you like go, a lot of them have like gravelly backgrounds.
You can probably tell by that they never stop. It's a constant sharpening of that knife. Sit down for coffee with them, and in 3 hours you realize it never goes dull. It just sits sharp.
And you'll find out that it's all the rewards of a misspent youth. I had no training. Where are we going to, hello, I want to do voices. Anybody teach? There was nothing. It was the dark ages when I was growing up.
I didn't even know, honestly. I grew up in Overland Park, Kansas, and when I was 15, I tried to call Hanna-Barbera. No joke, it's a long story, but I was going to complain about a cartoon. And I did not know where Hollywood, California was. It could have been next to San Francisco for all I knew. I had to call the operator and find out, because, who knew? And the funny part is, years later, I was telling the story, and I was at Hanna-Barbera before it became Cartoon Network. I was doing the Scooby-Doo episode, and I'm telling this story, and about I was complaining about Jagger Jaws.
Because it was not the most furious shark you ever seen.
Honestly, I got through to Hanna-Barbera, and because I had been interviewed on a local radio station because I sent a letter to somebody about how horrible Jagger Jaws was. I loved the fact that it was curly, the Three Stooges voice, but I just couldn't take the fact that it was, anyway, they used the same 5 people for everything Hanna-Barbera did. And I was thinking, I can do that. Why? I don't think it's different people. So I finally got a hold of someone at Hanna-Barbera, and the woman was so stunned that she was like, the receptionist was like, do you want to complain? What? You're calling from where? How old are you? I was 15. And so a few minutes later, someone gets on the phone, and it's a woman that said it was a producer. She was a producer, and she wanted what? And I kind of just said what I didn't like about the fact that they use the same 5 people for everything. And she goes, well, do you think you can do better? And I said, yeah, some of the voices I can do better. And she goes, well, why don't you move to Hollywood someday and do that? And I'm like, okay. And I did that. So I'm telling you, he's the cast of Scooby-Doo and Frank, because I know he's ready. And he goes, I went, wait a minute. You're not. You weren't. And he goes, yeah, Jules. It turns out there was only one female producer at Hanna-Barbera at that time, and it was Jane Barbera. Eddie actually remembered that. He said, "Yeah, there was. You remember when they were talking about some arrogant little
And you know what? Frank probably sat there and probably loved it and went, that kid's got
It's weird.
All right, right here.
Okay, so you guys have done a lot of different voices throughout your careers. Is there any voice you want to do from either cartoons or comics that you haven't had the chance to do before? And this is for all three.
No, not really.
You know what? I'd love to be able to do Morgan Freeman, but he won't let me.
Oh.
Literally. If you don't see Morgan Freeman's face, then Tom Kane is doing that
my dad for something and said, dude, that's a white guy again. Alphonse actually like, you're out of your mind. Because no, it's not. He didn't believe me. He pulled himself out. He called his dad Morgan, who was on the golf course, and held the stick up to the speaker and he goes, sorry.
I had a similar thing happen. They did this movie Dinosaur. Disney did a movie called Dinosaur. And then it was a huge success, and they wanted the merchandise and stuff. So they invented some games, that had interactive, and they needed the voices. And Della Reese wanted nothing to do with that. And so Rick Dempsey's got a problem. He's got to search Hollywood, every black actress, that can do Della Reese. But, he brought them all in, and nobody was getting it. So he gets this idea, he calls my age, and he goes, can Billy do Della Reese? and I
For those of you who don't know, Della Reese was a 70-year-old heavy-set black woman.
Yeah, very masculinized. But she wouldn't do it, and I watched the movie Dinosaur, and she was a holy roller, I found out. She had her own church and all this, and like, so, praise the Lord. And she wasn't going to do it, and so I was auditioning for it, and everybody starts coming in. It's the same thing. And they're going, oh, who did they get? And they're looking in, and they see this dumb white guy. And she would call out for some of the characters, and she'll, Baleen, honey! I'm tired.
So it's even more ridiculous.
No, but I mean, that's a crazy thing that happens. You get asked for stuff. And you can't say no. You'll say, I don't care. It's like, I'll try it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. One of my favorite things. There's a woman at Warner Brothers Animation who works receptionist at Thelma. And she'll call and say, Mom, my animation. She's saying Warner Brothers Animation. And I call somebody back. Oh, baby. And for years we do that. We come and see Belmo when we go record Titans, and finally we got to the I think it was the second to last season of Titans that we did, and there was a waitress in the scene, and so I played Thelma giving Beast Boy a piece of pie.
Nice.
And when he said he had to take it to go, and I was like, ooh, okay, because I can't have this pie.
Yeah, so he was talking earlier about, growing up as a black kid and not, having to go through 6 issues of something to find the black guy on page 3 in the corner, and now
he's killed.
Now he's, but it is one of the things I always talk about when I talk to schools and stuff about. One of the most amazing aspects of cartoons, certainly today, is they don't care. couldn't care, tall, short, fat, thin, Asian, black, white, no one cares. And if you got the voice, I always tell the story about at one point, Fred Flintstone was played by, oh my God, Richard.
Kevin Michael Richardson.
Kevin Michael Richardson. Oh, wow. And Kevin Michael Richardson is about 5'9", 400-pound, bald black guy. And he's sitting there, no, it wasn't Fred, he's doing Barney.
He's doing Barney. James Taylor
and Fred Flintstone was being played by James Owen Taylor, who's about 5 foot nothing, 100 pounds soaking wet, little white guy going, Barney! Yeah. You're looking at this going, this is a cool business.
Yeah. Yes. Right here.
I apologize. This is for Mr. West.
My dad's Mr. West. You
call me Billy. You did a movie called Comic Book with Mark Hamill.
Yes.
And I was wondering how different it was for you to act in front of the camera as opposed to behind it.
I don't know. I'm not self-conscious in any way, and
you're kidding.
No, but I also wanted to make sure I did what I was supposed to do as this character, this Leo Matusik, whose great grandfather or somebody created a superhero, and it got lost through the ages, and then they just discovered it, and then these two guys claimed, no, we made that up when we were in the army, and it was my two comedic heroes, Sid Caesar and Jonathan Winters. You don't know what that was like, to sit and do a scene with these two titans. I could barely speak, and these guys were like, we were young, we were on the naval boat in World War II, and then we heard the Germans, we could hear the Germans screaming, the Germans, lost torpedoes. And Jonathan would say, and we sometimes would wash up on shore, and meet a small hairless boy occasionally, and I'm dying, and my part is to tell these guys that they're full of shit. And so I go, look, I don't care what you guys have to say. The circus is coming to town, and you better just roll out of the way or you're going to get run over. And Jonathan Winters goes, the circus is coming to town. He's an idiot. To me. But, I didn't care. I was bulletproof with those guys around. It was so beautiful. But Comic Book the movie, my job was basically to be amazed at everything. I was like Candide, where you come in and you're like, this guy from the sticks, he was a sheet metal worker, grinding the same goddamn holes for 25 years, and suddenly he's a celebrity at a Comic-Con, and he had to do a slow change. But I met an acting teacher at one of these shows, and he came over and said, I just wanted to tell you that I'm an acting teacher, and I teach prisoners how to act. And he said, well, they are natural actors, they can just pull a story out of their ass, they can become anybody they want with a name and a history, He says, that's perfect to be an actor. So he says, but I show them what we did in Comic Book the movie to teach them how to do nothing. I guess there's an art to it, you just can't stand there and look at the camera and go, while you're not doing something. And it was great fun working with all those people. That was all improvised. There was no dialogue that was preset. We just knew what we needed to do, and everybody just pulled out stuff. And that's the best organic. These people being the best they can be. And what do you do on camera?
Yeah, I actually don't find that there's much difference between on camera and voice acting. That it's all got to come from a real place. Even if you're being cartoony, it's a cartoony big voice. It's still coming from a reality. It's rooted in even if it's this exuberant, crazy, reality. It's still that reality, and you got to be real and express it in that moment. So from theater, you got to be louder so the people in the back of the room can hear you, and you can be quieter when you're on TV, and maybe a little quieter when you're blown up to being on a film. But all of those are simply realities that you change into. But at the end of the day, it's all about being real. even as unreal as some of these characters can be.
I really done almost no on-camera work at all. The little bit I've done felt like work.
We're saving
Only for all the enjoyment and characters over the years, and thank you for finally making out the wet badass. What advice could you give for someone wanting to get into business?
Well, the deal breaker for most people, honestly, is you got to be in LA. So the first thing I say to someone who says, "Oh, I want to get into cartoon business," are you able to pack up and move? If the answer is no, then there's no point in going further. It's one of the last areas of voiceover work where you have to be in the room. And I don't live in LA anymore, and my animation career has suffered greatly because of it. They really do want you in the room. So that's just from a sheer utility point of view. That's the first thing. Next, you have to be good. And I'm not saying this from an egotistical point of view. But we all still audition for stuff.
If you want to work, you got to audition.
Yeah, Jim Cummings' voice is way bigger. Auditions for stuff every day. We all do.
And Jim Cummings came and mopped up the floor with that audition.
Yeah. So I say to people, you can't be good because your grandma says you're good, or your friends say you're good. You got to be good enough to go into a room in Los Angeles and be him, and be me, and be him to get that part. And again, it's not ego, that's just reality.
It's the bottom line.
And the corollary to that is, even that's not enough. Even if you're just as good as him, just as good as me, just as good as him, they don't know you. I was in LA for 3 years. I was working all the time, in promos, trailers and stuff. 3 years auditioning before I got my first cartoon episode. And it wasn't because I wasn't any good. It's just because they didn't know me. And I call it the plumber effect. If you've been using a plumber for 10 years, and he shows up on time, does a good job, charges you a fair price, and cleans up when he leaves, the next time you get a leak, you're not going to go to the yellow pages and find a new plumber. You're going to call the same guy. So when the three of us show up for audition, and there's a new guy, and we're all just as good as each other, they're going to hire him or me because they know us. And so it's sort of just, so you got to be talented, you got to keep showing up.
Well, it's a fear-driven industry, and so they can't make mistakes. So they figure, we'll go with the guys who have a track record, and that's based on fear. Because I always talk about this, and I probably shouldn't. It sounds like I'm complaining, but I'm not. I'm not bitter about the fact that all these celebrities are crashing the animation voiceover. And I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who'll talk about it, because being 60, I said one day, you know what, it means you don't have to explain shit to anybody anymore unless you want to. Who am I afraid of? Nothing, Mr. Show Business, I'd like a word with you, And the thing about those guys is my heroes were artists when I was growing up. Musicians, painters, sculptors, writers, they were my heroes. And they weren't celebrities. I didn't have any celebrity worship in me per se, except for people who did the stuff that moved people like me, but not en masse. And so, when they came in, I was like, this is how nobody, a 19-year-old firebrand out in Kansas, where you are, or anywhere, who might be unbelievably good and so promising and everything, they're never going to get to be seen if it's just celebrities needing to do everything. And the art suffers because of it, It's like it invalidates what we do for a living, They ask you something and they say, can you do it? And you do it. And can you do it a little to the left and sound more drunk, or whatever? And we can do on demand pretty much what they're looking for. And Chris Rock was on the awards one time and was saying, how easy it was being a voiceover. No, my little friend. It's easy being you and what you are. And they've already drawn the character to look like you and went, who should we get? And they get to come in and do their own voice, bring who and exactly what they are to the table. We don't have that luxury. it's like when you go in, producers hire you and they say, you know what, we got a problem. We got this bar of lead on the table. And before you leave here, we want you to turn it to gold. What do you say? And so you do. And it's alchemy. You leave the room and now there's a bar of gold there that they can do something with. But with a celebrity, there's no alchemy. That was the magic of an animated cartoon, is these people who were not what you're hearing could become just about anybody in that play or cartoon. And, when they come in the room, there's a bar of lead on the table. When they leave and they collect $20 million, it's like it's still lead. And someday their names aren't going to mean anything, and people are going to look at those cartoons and go, what's the big deal?
I mean, this is tough business, but and the first bit of advice I would say is just know that going in. So, love it. You better love it like you didn't love anything else. Because there'll be times that you audition, and and you're not working for a while, and those are the times when you gotta love it. When you just love making these making believe, and you love the fight for it. You love it so much that you fight for it, and you love the fight. You love fighting for it, because it's like you can have a beer right now, but run a marathon. That beer tastes better. It's like you gotta go for it. You gotta really dig in, and because the truth is, this is a great job. Anybody would love this job. A lot of people want this job, so you better want it a little bit more. You better love it enough and work a little bit more at it, and stay in the shower 10 minutes longer, talking to yourself in funny voices. But most of all, the best advice I can give you, because I know immensely talented people who moved to LA and they left in 90 days. And I know people who maybe they're not the most talented people in the world, but they hustle and they love it and they love the fight. And if I had my druthers, I definitely want to be. I want to be the one who's hustling more, because they're going to be happy no matter what. You can be talented, but if you don't love the fight, you'll be alcoholic and miserable. And people will say it's a shame he died, alone and unhappy, because he was so amazing. But happiness has got to be here at the end of the day for me. So so that's my advice. Love it. And actually, D. Bradley Baker has a great blog that he set out as far as what to do before you get to LA, what do you do after it, and it's just kind of a stream of consciousness thing that he just writes out.
It's good advice.
Yeah, it really is great advice, and just as a rule, you should always listen to D. Bradley Baker.
My advice was usually the way to go is wherever you are, there's a recording studio. And if you can save up a little money to get a demo done, a professional demo, they'll have you read real commercial copy. So you've got to learn on the fly the difference between the text and the subtext. Like, what do these words mean? Which ones get the emphasis, and how do you make it not sound like, just choppy or in and out, no peaks and valleys, because you have to have a love of language. And if they tell you make it sound dull, you know how to do it. You've got that down as if it were an important part of doing anything.
Yeah.
So you get this tape, and big cities have agencies where they hire local people, but it has to be like Chicago or New York or Los Angeles. But to go where there is work, you've got to get an agent, an appointment with some kind of talent agent that will be interested enough in you that he will say, well, maybe there's some money to be made here. Maybe this guy can go in and
it does kind of suck, because you have to get a voiceover job before you can get an agent. But in order to get a voiceover job, you have to get an agent. And so there's really no formula. I always think of Young Frankenstein, when they grab that candle and the wall moves. It's like that's how you get a voiceover career. You just start pulling at stuff because there's no formula. I've never heard of one voiceover actor who got started the same way another one did. They happen to know somebody, they happen to run into somebody. Somebody was like, they were doing another job, and they're like, man, these boys are pretty good. You know, I know something, you know, maybe you on something. It's always something different, but keep your eyes open and be ready, you know, definitely.
I can tell we're going to get to all your questions. No, we really won't, but you... Yeah.
Is there one voice that everybody has? Who does it best? And Billy, if you could do something, your favorite from Ryan Santiago.
One voice, or all of them? Or okay, yeah, I should run down all the stuff I do. I mean, that's kind of what... But take a video of it. And don't put it on YouTube. I'm self-conscious. No, I'm kidding. Well, Ren and Stimpy, I did that in 1990. And I was working on a show called Beanie and Cecil, and the animator that was on that show had a new idea for cartoon. He sent me some stuff, and I didn't even know what it was. Are they microbes? Are they, you know, aliens? What are they? I didn't know it was a brain-dead cat and a neurotic asthma hound chihuahua, quintessential a-hole, you know, composite. And Stimpy was based on Larry Fine from the Three Stooges. I don't know if you know who he is, but he was the guy in the middle. Mo would be like, you know, what's the matter with you? And Curly was like, certainly. And Larry would go, be careful, Mo. You know, stupid little peripheral stuff. It's like, hey, Mo, you put too much tinsel on the tree. You know, and then I amped it up like he was a child, you know. Will you button me, Ren? Will you shut up, you fool? Yes, I shall kill you. So that was my big splash.
How cool is it for you to be sitting up there?
Go, Tom!
Probably my favorite voice, I think, is still Gilbert, because I'm a fan. So, when I get a picture taken, I stand up, I'm 6'5", and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this doing? You're so tall. I'm like, wait, in fact, I'm a human.
Yeah, right.
Somehow, I'm a podium with this shocker. But I think my favorite show though was Powerpuff Girls. It was just a great cast. And which again was a complete bit from nowhere. And was also him, which is one of the creepiest characters ever. I can't tell you every time some mom would be telling their kid, like, you know, on the Powerpuff Girls, he's Professor Strontium. And they always leave him out. But again, that is a deadlift of a character that actually played me a chunk of a character from the Beatles movie Yellow Submarine called the Blue Meanie. Wow. And that's what that is. If you go back, go Google Blue Meanie, and you'll go, wow, that sounds like him from the Powerpuff Girls. So yeah, it's you know, like, there's nothing new under the sun. So, but yeah, I was a Foster song movie, and I was Kim Possible. I was a monkey fish.
I worked for Nick when I was in radio in New York. I worked with Howard Stern for a few years. Hey, Robin, just farted. All right, very good. We'll be back after this. No. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. But I got out of there, and Nickelodeon was going to put together a Sunday morning cartoon block. They were going to do everything that the networks weren't going to do. You know, Saturday, they got Saturday, okay, we're going to do it on Sunday. And suddenly, they came up with these ideas. There was Ren and Stimpy, and then there was a sweet little cartoon called Doug. And I got to play a couple of characters in it.
You know, it's funny, painfully average 11-and-a-half-year-old. And this is my dog, Pork Chop.
And I did Roger, the needler, the bully kid, you know.
Hey, loser! I'm running for office! Vote for this!
You know, just stupid stuff like that. And Ren and Stimpy, and all that time I was working on anything. If somebody called up, it's like, we want you to be the voice of a pair of suspenders or something. Nothing was under my radar. I thought everything was equally as cool and equally as important as anything else.
Well, I just say, booyah!
Alright, first I'd like to say, Billy, I really appreciated your little thing with the table read for Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. How easy was it to tell that I was going out of my mind and I wanted to get out of there? I'm not staying here for the full length of a feature movie. To read the script, there's different characters. We start recycling characters and I'm going, a bit has to have a beginning, a middle, and end. We're like in a holding pattern, and I kind of made a big deal out of it. And then the guy who was calling the shots was saying, okay, now you as something or other to do this character in the Star Wars thing. And I said, can I just do whatever I want? Can I just do anything I feel like? And so I read some character, and it's 10 years too late for a Sopranos impression, And this character suddenly became like Tony Soprano. So it's freaking Sunday dinner at the Happy House.
I hate those things when someone I'm not good at improv. If I don't have a script in front of me, like I said, I'm not like some of these guys. I need a template at least to start from, because I'm not a writer. I need the words. I need someone who's better at that than I am to put something on paper. Then I can turn that lead into gold.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not a writer. I can't make stuff up on the spot without, kind of stuff. You'd be a terrible.
But I wanted to ask you guys, because I'm going to go for myself going to Hollywood next year, and I love reading about the new developments in the industry and everything. I wanted to know what fascinates you or what is inspiring you about new innovations in the animation industry.
Well, just the fact that, we somehow magically got to be in it. To me, it's always just sort of.
It wasn't like you had a choice. It grabbed you and you had to go with it. You didn't decide that.
Yeah, it's an amazingly fast-moving business, and what's amazing is all the things that you're able to do now. We just screened a film that I produced and started earlier today, and we shot that for pennies because we, gave somebody a bottle of scotch and said, we'll come back to this red camera on Monday morning, sir. And, we got a camera and a thing, you can do it, So,
what's the name of that film?
It's called The Last Push, and it was directed and written by a college friend of mine who's from Denver as well, so Eric Hayden, and we won a couple of film festivals, and we've been to London and Boston, and we'll be in Chicago, and hopefully we'll be doing an art house run in a couple of months, so I'm really excited. Yeah, but it's amazing what you can do with almost nothing, and literally that's what we had. You could buy a crappy used car for the amount of money that we spent on that movie, but if you do it with passion, if you tell the story that you're passionate about, and be able to move people in the dark every once in a while.
Yeah.
I'm wondering.
Last question.
I'm wondering, once you get whether it's Darwin or Professor Tony or whoever, how do you identify with your character? How do you keep it new?
They show you pictures of the character. It has dimension, it has a look on his face. They tell you kind of what his attitude on life is. Has his own history, or her history. And like on Futurama, I'm going to go audition for Matt Groening. I'm like, oh man, I was like, this is going to be weird, And I was like, I always wanted to meet you. I've been a fan. I know who you are. And he says, I know who you are too. He was a fan of mine. So I was like rocked out of my world. And I wanted to do the greatest, and they showed me these pictures. And they showed me this Dr. Zoidberg, and he had a lot of cool meat hanging off his face. And so I figured he'd be impaired to a degree when he spoke. And I took a couple of actors I remember from childhood. One was Lou Jacoby, and one was a vaudevillian guy named George Jessel, and they both had marble mouths. Like Lou Jacoby, I want you to do that kind of this. Please. You know, and he was in the diary of Anne Frank, you know. And it was horrifying. It was like, slow from the children. Our slow. And so I usually get that George Jessel who was like, you know, hello, ladies and gentlemen. You know, and then that was the character, that's what he became, you know, go eat garbage, why not, it's free. You know, and they showed a picture of Fry, and I said, I'm going to just use what I sounded like at 25, because you could sort of remember what you sounded like. I was always complaining, I was whining, you know, I had this nasally little voice, and he's like, man, all this constant exposure to radiation is making me thirsty. You know, and then Zach Brannigan was going to be played by Phil Hartman, but sadly he left us. And he and I met and talked about big dumb announcers from the old days, which we loved but we hated because they were so pompous, you know. And they loved the sound of their own voice, and they wouldn't let go of words, so they would add another syllable, you know, to it to make sure it still floated. And Zach Brannigan would be one of those kind of guys, you know, like Zach Brannigan, Master of Time, Space, and everything else between, and oh yeah, winner of this year's Modesty Award. You know, just like the old disc jockeys. And the professor was every dawdling wizard, you know, old. You know, he was 147 years old. He's covered with skin. You know, he looked like airplane food.
For some crazy reason, they only gave us an hour, and it's apparently mafia guys over on the side of the guys in black hats. So,
I didn't tell you guys to come in here. Don't come in here.
But thank you so much for coming, everybody. If you have questions, there are booths upstairs. We'll be able to go and comment and ask questions. Please feel free. All right?
Thank you very much. I need everyone to exit to your left, and everyone does have to exit the auditorium.
And that was it. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a really long show. Technically, it should have been in glorious excess, but I thought I'd want to shove all that wonderful content into your ear holes for a little bit longer. Thank you for sticking with us. We have a lot to go over in Newsity, so the next episode's not nearly going to be as long. So, we're looking forward to actually covering Non-DesCon 16. That's this year from February 14th to February, I think, 16th. Let me check real quick. Yep, February 14th to the 16th. Sorry, September, not February. Oh, God. Brain. Ugh. That's what owning a business does to you. It fries your brain. Every day is stress. Every day. We might start a Kickstarter, actually. See if we can make a little bit extra revenue, get some new equipment, that type of thing. So, who knows? So anyways, that's the show for today. Thank you for sticking around for 3.5 hours. Thank you for driving around for 3.5 hours, or walking, or running. Actually, if you put on your running shoes and your headphones and you started this and you ran for the entirety of it, that would be a pretty good workout, I think. Pretty good workout. Yeah. You're welcome. So, this is your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, here for Radio DMG on this August 8th, 2012. Signing out, and...
Morning, Maya.